Chapter 1600. Bang! A gust of wind from her palm landed on the pill furnace. The furnace lid bounced up, and the pills in the furnace instantly flew out. However, just as she was about to reach out to catch them, a scene that made her dumbfounded appeared. After the two pills flew out of the furnace, a pair of transparent wings condensed from spiritual power appeared in an instant. The two pills flew up with a whoosh, and they even let out a childlike voice, "Quickly run, quickly run." Fengjiu was dumbfounded. He stared blankly at the two pills that had grown transparent wings and were desperately trying to escape. He was speechless for a long time. What was going on? How could the two pills that she had refined grow a pair of transparent wings? They could even speak. This was too strange. However, when she heard the cries of the two pills, she abruptly regained her senses. These were her mother's life-saving pills. She couldn't lose them. When she regained her senses, she chased after one of the pills and shouted, "Quick! Help me catch it." Hui Lang and Ing Yi were also stunned. They had lived for so long, but this was the first time they had seen a pill fly away on its own. Furthermore, it could speak. Could it be that the pills that she had refined had a pill spirit? Hiss! Pill spirit? Was that possible? Thinking of this possibility, the two of them couldn't help but be shocked. The first to react were Xianyuan Mose and Mo Chen. When the two of them saw that the two pills had grown wings and were about to escape, they knew that these two pills were top-grade divine pills that had given birth to a pill spirit. Therefore, when Fengjiu shouted, the two of them rushed forward at the same time, and each of them chased after one of the pills. However, the two pills were small and agile. Coupled with the fact that they had wings, the two of them caught nothing. After chasing for a long time, they finally caught the two pills that were about to escape and sent them back to Fengjiu. Keep it well. This pill has already given birth to a pill spirit, so it can escape. Xianyuan Mose handed the pill to her. After she caught it in her hand, the pair of transparent wings on the pill had already disappeared. It also didn't make any sound and became like an ordinary pill. This one is here. Mo Chen walked forward and handed the other pill to her. He smiled and said, "Fengjiu, you're really surprising. How did you refine a pill spirit? This has really broadened our horizons. Things like pill spirits only existed in legends in the past." Fengjiu took them and looked at the two pills. There were 6 spiritual auras flowing on them, forming pill patterns. Seeing that they were 6th-grade pills, she smiled. She put the pills away and said, "Actually, I just refined the pills as usual. The only difference is that I added something into the pills." "Oh. What is it?" Mo Chen asked curiously. "Yuanling." She smiled slightly. She was also a little surprised. She didn't expect that after adding a Yuanling to the pills could indeed be upgraded and could even give birth to a pill spirit. Hearing the two words Yuanling, Mo Chen was stunned for a moment. Then, he chuckled and said, "Fengjiu is indeed Fengjiu. You've even met a Yuanling. Well, you're always surprising people. You can't be measured by normal standards." Xianyuan Mose glanced at him indifferently. Then, he said to Fengjiu, "Do you still want to refine pills? If you do, we won't disturb you." Chapter 1601. Xianyuan Mose pursed his lips and said to Mo Chen, "We're not done with our game of chess." Then, he turned and left. Seeing this, Mo Chen smiled. With her hands behind her back, she left with him and went back to play chess. However, in the following days, Fengjiu seemed to have become addicted to refining pills. Whenever she had time, she would refine pills. In a few days, she had refined many pills. Until one day, when Xianyuan Mose heard the rumbling of thunder, he came to where she was. "Ha ha ha, another pill of the 5th level or higher. Ghost Doctor, you're too amazing." Hui Lang laughed loudly and looked excitedly at Fengjiu, who was standing in front of the pill furnace. In the past few days, the pills that the ghost doctor had refined were all of the 5th level or higher. Although there were only 2 or 3 pills produced in each furnace, every one of them was of the highest quality. Every time he saw those pills, he was extremely excited. Any one of these pills would sell for a sky-high price in the outside world. Any one of these pills would cause people to break their heads. But she actually used only a few days to refine dozens of these pills. This kind of production rate really made him feel that it was inconceivable. It should be enough. Xianyuan Mose walked over and said to Fengjiu, who was examining the pills. "Why are you here?" Fengjiu looked up and asked with a smile. These past few days, he had been playing chess with Mo Chen. It was still early. Why was he here? "We've been here for a few days. It's time to leave," he said as his deep gaze met her smiling eyes. I was just about to talk to you about this. I've used up most of the pills in my space. There's no point in staying here. Let's go down the mountain today," she said with a smile. Then, she put away the pill furnace and walked over to his side. Hearing this, Xianyuan Mose smiled. We'll go down the mountain today. Then we'll let Mo Chen and his master know that we've disturbed you for the past few days. His master is in closed-door cultivation. Don't bother with him. Just let that pretty boy know," Xianyuan Mose said as he glanced at Mo Chen, who was walking towards them. When Mo Chen, who was slowly walking over, heard the words pretty boy, she couldn't help but shake her head helplessly. Because he could feel that Xianyuan Mose seemed to have some enmity towards him, and this enmity probably came from Fengjiu. "You're leaving?" He came to the two of them and asked gently. When Fengjiu saw him, he smiled and said, "You came at the right time. We were just about to inform you that we were preparing to leave the mountain today. We have disturbed you for the past few days. Please help me thank your master for his icy heart white jade lotus." "All right, I will. Since you're leaving, be careful on your way." He smiled and nodded. Thus, Fengjiu and the rest packed up and prepared to leave. Mo Chen wanted to send them down the mountain, but was politely declined by Xianyuan Mose. Seeing this, he smiled and didn't force them. He just watched them leave from the top of the mountain. Chapter 1602. A few days later, Fengjiu and the others arrived at a town. As soon as they sat down in a restaurant, they heard the people in the restaurant talking about the Danyang sect. "Have you heard? The sect master of the Danyang sect is dead," a man said in a low voice as he ate a peanut. The men at the same table were astonished and asked, "Dead? Is it true? When did this happen? How come we didn't know? This news only spread yesterday. I heard that the sect master of the Danyang sect went missing from his main peak. When he was found, he was at the cliff behind the mountain. Some people said that he slipped and fell to his death. Others said that he was assassinated. In short, the Danyang sect has been in a lot of trouble recently. Then wouldn't the Danyang sect be in chaos? Now that the sect master is dead, the people below must be in chaos, right? Didn't they provoke someone not long ago? And a peak master is dead. Now even the sect master is dead. This year is really unlucky for the Danyang sect. This is strange. I heard that the Danyang sect's higher-ups suppressed this matter. It seems that they don't want to investigate. There must be something unknown. Otherwise, why would a dignified sect master suddenly say that he fell to his death? But since the sect's people don't want to investigate, there must be someone above them who can't be offended. What a pity. That sect master was said to be an alchemist saint master, but he died just like that. It's really unexpected. Fengjiu was eating while listening to the people at the table. He felt a little strange. The sect master of the Danyang sect fell to his death. He couldn't be so stupid, right? Why did this sound so strange? Moreover, he fell to his death at this time. Thinking of this, she looked at Xianyuan Mose, who was sitting opposite her and eating leisurely, and asked, "Do you know what happened?" Looking at his calm expression, she had an intuition that he should know something. Xianyuan Mose responded and said, "If I'm not wrong, this should be done by your brother." As he said that, he picked up some food for her and said, "Hurry up and eat." "My brother?" She was a little surprised. Didn't her brother say that he had something to do? Why? Yes, it should be him. He knew that those men in black were sent by that person to assassinate you. When he saw me by your side, he knew that you wouldn't be in danger with me by your side, so he went to do that thing. Xianyuan Mose put down his chopsticks and took a sip of wine. He didn't expect Guan Shilin to act so quickly. To be able to sneak into the Danyang sect from the outside, assassinate the sect master of the Danyang sect, and escape unscathed without alerting the others, he must be quite capable. How reckless! She frowned, her eyes filled with unconcealable worry. "Don't worry. He's fine and has already gone to your mother's place." Hearing this, Feng Zhou was relieved. He ate while thinking about how to meet up with them. Xianyuan Mose could tell that she was worried and said, "Let's rest for a while before we hit the road. If there are no delays on the road, we can reach there in a few days." Feng Zhou nodded. He knew that even if he was in a hurry, he wouldn't be able to return home any time soon. After eating, they saw that it was getting late and decided to stay in the city for the night. They planned to set off the next morning. That night, Xianyuan Mose saw that Feng Zhou seemed to be worried and asked, "What's wrong? Is there something on your mind?" Chapter 1603. Hearing this, Xianyuan Mose held her hand and said, "Don't worry about him. He's just an old swindler. His words can't be taken seriously. But I keep having this uneasy feeling. I keep feeling that something uncontrollable will happen." She frowned and said, "You don't know. He's really a little mysterious. I have to believe him. Don't worry. No matter what happens, I'll face it with you. What will come will come. Just like that old swindler said, if it's a blessing, it's not a curse. If it's a curse, it can't be avoided." She replied and nestled in his arms. The next morning, they set off at dawn. They wanted to go home early after finishing their business. Moreover, Xianyuan Mose was thinking that once Feng Zhou's mother was cured of the poison, he would send them back to the Phoenix dynasty first. After that, he would go back to prepare the betrothal gifts. Ever since he had the thought of marrying her, he began to have people gather rare treasures and prepare 100 chests of betrothal gifts. When the time was right, he would bring people to carry the betrothal gifts to the Phoenix court and bring her back to marry him. Now that this matter was right in front of him, his heart was filled with anticipation. Soon, he would be able to marry her. On the other side, Guan Shilin, dressed in black robes and carrying a broadsword, walked into the city. He walked through the streets and looked for the shop that Leng Shuang opened according to his sister's instructions. However, when he asked around and arrived at that place, he saw that there were many guards surrounding the shop, and he could faintly hear angry shouts coming from inside. Hearing that voice, he could tell that it was not the voice he was familiar with. Thus, he asked a man beside him, "What's going on here?" The man was suddenly patted on the shoulder. He was about to turn around and curse, but when he saw the burly man with a murderous aura, he couldn't help but shrink back. He hurriedly replied, "It's someone from a family in the neighboring city. They said they bought fake medicine here and asked for an explanation." "Fake medicine?" Guan Shilin raised his voice and sneered. He was about to walk in, but before he could take a step, he saw a fat man in his 30s being thrown out. "Get out. If you dare to cause trouble here again, I'll make you pay." Du Fan held a fan in one hand and walked out slowly with narrowed eyes. He stared at the fat man he threw out with a face full of warning. You've got guts. How dare you make a move on me?" Very well. Guards! Smash his shop for me. The fat man got up, pulled up his belt, pointed at the shop, and shouted at the guard. Bang! A powerful voice suddenly rang out, causing the ground to tremble. Everyone was so frightened that they took a few steps back. Let's see who dares. Guan Shilin's deep and fierce voice was filled with a bloodthirsty killing intent. He was dressed in black and his fierce gaze swept across the guards. Wherever his gaze passed, the guards involuntarily lowered their heads. They didn't dare to look directly at his bloodthirsty and fierce gaze. Du Fan's eyes lit up when he saw Guan Shilin. Because there were many people, he did not go up to greet him. He only nodded slightly at him. Chapter 1604. Especially when the other party was tall and strong, while he was short and fat. The strong contrast made him swallow his saliva and take 2 steps back, not daring to get too close to the other party. Who do you think I am? Guan Shilin snorted in a low voice, releasing his dark force at this moment. The strong pressure pressed down on the fat man, causing him to break out in a cold sweat. This is a matter between the Zhao family and their shop. Who are you? Why are you taking the lead? A low voice suddenly came from behind the crowd. When he heard this voice, the fat man was instantly happy, and his eyes lit up with excitement. Big brother. I'm here. Guan Shilin and Du Fan looked in the direction of the voice and saw that the crowd was pushed aside by a group of guards. The guards were escorting a middle-aged man in luxurious clothes as he walked over. Master. When the guards saw the middle-aged man, they quickly lowered their heads and bowed respectfully. At this moment, Guan Shilin and Du Fan sized up the man without batting an eyelid. They saw that he was a strong man at the early stage of the fairy realm, and his aura was sharp and intimidating. When he walked over, his eyes were fixed on Guan Shilin. Big brother, these people are too much. You must teach them a lesson. Otherwise, the reputation of the Zhao family will be ruined. The fat man fanned the flames, as if he was afraid that the matter would not be blown out of proportion. Du Fan, tell them who I am. Do I have the right to interfere with the matters here? Guan Shilin said to Du Fan without turning his head. Yes. Du Fan responded and walked forward, saying, this is the young master of our family. If he doesn't have the right to interfere, who else has the right to do so? Oh. The young master of this shop. Is he the owner? The man who was addressed as the head of the family said in a deep voice. His eyes were glowing as he sized up Guan Shilin. He then smiled and said, are you a mercenary? Your aura is very similar to the murderous mercenaries who are out on missions. In other words, he saw that Guan Shilin was a dark force cultivator and did not take him seriously. After all, in the eyes of spirit cultivators, dark force cultivators were inferior. They only had strength, and were not to be feared at all. No matter how strong they were, dark force cultivators could not be compared to spirit cultivators. Although he saw Guan Shilin's murderous aura, he still looked down on him. Therefore, there was a hint of disdain in his words. He even bluntly described Guan Shilin as a mercenary who risked his life to earn a living. Guan Shilin understood the meaning behind his words. He raised his head and laughed out loud. Ha 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 ha. Seeing this, the master, he did not understand. Shilin, what are you laughing at? This person was really arrogant and impudent. A mere dark force cultivator dared to be so arrogant in front of him, a fairy. He really did not know what was good for him. Guan Shilin stopped laughing and looked at the master with a half-smile, saying, I'm laughing. Although I don't know which family you are from, judging from your judgment and actions, I don't think you're from a prestigious family. Chapter 1605. Are you threatening me? The family head stared at Guan Shilin with a gloomy expression as he released the aura of a fairy realm fighter. However, to Guan Shilin, who had experienced many battles and seen many powerful fighters, a fighter at the beginner stage of the fairy realm was not much of a threat to him. In fact, he could easily withstand his opponent's pressure. Threatening you? Heh, you really think too highly of yourself. Guan Shilin laughed coldly and said, before you cause trouble, you'd better find out where this place is. Don't provoke someone you shouldn't provoke. You'll regret it if the entire clan is implicated. Hearing this, the family head's heart skipped a beat, and his brows furrowed tightly. At this moment, he had no choice but to take this Xian cultivator seriously. Under the pressure of a fairy realm fighter, Guan Shilin's expression did not change. Furthermore, he dared to speak to him so fearlessly. It was obvious that the power behind them was not ordinary. However, wasn't this just a small medicine store? Could it be that there was something special about it? At this moment, he could not help but hesitate. If he really provoked someone powerful, he was afraid that the entire clan would be implicated, just as Guan Shilin had said. Big brother, don't listen to this guy's nonsense. He's just trying to scare you. The fat man ran over and glared fiercely at Guan Shilin. However, at this moment, the middle-aged man did not reply. Instead, he was deep in thought. At this moment, the middle-aged man who had been hiding at the side thought for a while and finally walked forward. Family head, I have something to say. The Zhao family head glanced at him and saw that it was the steward who followed his younger brother. Only then did he signal for him to come forward. However, when he heard the steward whisper a few words into his ear, his face couldn't help but change greatly. He immediately raised his foot and kicked. Bastard! Why didn't you say anything just now? Why did you let him fool around? He cursed angrily and kicked him a few meters away. It could be said that the more angry he was, the greater the strength of his kick. When the fat man beside him saw this, he could not help but feel guilty. He glanced at his brother and lowered his head, not daring to say anything else. Although the family head of the Zhao family cared about his reputation and was somewhat arrogant, he was not a brainless person. He could still distinguish between the severity of the situation and the consequences. Therefore, after taking a deep breath, he cupped his hands and said to Guan Shilin and Du Fan, I've offended you earlier because I didn't know the cause. It's my fault for not disciplining him properly and causing trouble. I apologize to the both of you, and I hope that you can let this matter rest. Let. Guan Shilin was not one to push his luck. Seeing that Du Fan had apologized, Guan Shilin looked at Du Fan and nodded. Then, he said, I hope this kind of thing will not happen again. As soon as he finished speaking, he shouted to the people who were watching the show, everyone, disperse. There's nothing to see. Then, he walked back into the shop with Du Fan. Big brother, why did you? The fat man stepped forward and was about to speak. After all, he was somewhat unwilling to see his brother apologize to them. Go back immediately. The family head of the Zhao family shouted at him. He flicked his sleeves and walked away with a dark face. What a disgrace! Big brother, big brother! The fat man shouted and quickly chased after him with his men. Chapter 1606. It's quite interesting. A man in luxurious clothes smiled and nodded. That person just now was the head of the Zhao family in the neighboring city. Although he's not from a big family, he's still considered a medium family. Yet, he didn't dare to provoke this small pharmacy. A small pharmacy. Another man in luxurious clothes took a sip of tea and then said, You're the disciples of the big families in the city. You don't even know that this pharmacy is not simple. We know that this pharmacy is not simple. But how is it not simple? Do you know? Let's hear it. The others laughed and gestured for the man to speak. I only heard my father and an uncle mention it by chance. They said that the owner behind this pharmacy is called the Ghost Doctor. He's proficient in the art of refining pills and medicine. Moreover, he has a miraculous medical skill that can bring the dead back to life. The man said. He seemed to want to whet their appetite. He deliberately paused and glanced at them. Okay, hurry up and speak. Don't stop for a while. Seeing this, the man smiled and said, It's said that the ghost doctor has a close relationship with the owner of the black market. Moreover, his background is extraordinary. This pharmacy seems to be selling some ordinary medicinal herbs, but in fact, there's a secret. Oh. What secret? Someone couldn't help but ask. You should have heard about my father's advancement last month, right? The man looked at the few people and asked. Yes, I heard. Didn't your father suffer an extremely serious internal injury that year? His strength has been stuck at the beginning of the fairy stage. I wanted to ask you about this. How did your father suddenly advance? This matter has already spread in the big families in the city. However, I didn't hear from my father's generation how he advanced. A man said curiously. That's because my father bought 2 pills from this medicine shop. One is for treating internal injuries, and the other is for increasing one's strength. The brocade-robed man said proudly. There's such a thing. What kind of pill is so powerful? It must be worth a lot of money, right? Why didn't my father buy such a powerful pill? He's now at the bottleneck of advancement. If he had such a pill, he would definitely succeed in advancing. That's right. I didn't hear my father mention such a thing. Don't they know? Otherwise, why would they let go of such a good opportunity? Chi. The man in brocade who spoke earlier sneered and glanced at them. Do you think you can buy it just because you have money? Hearing this, the few of them were stunned and asked in unison, Is it not? Of course not. The brocade-robed man shook his index finger and said, In addition to money, you also have to have the medicine purchase token issued by this pharmacy. I heard from my father that those who have the medicine purchase token can't buy the medicine, and those who have the medicine purchase token can't buy the medicine either. This pharmacy is so strange. Not many medicine pills are sold to the outside world, but people are fighting over them. They know this, but no one dares to offend them. Don't you think it's awesome? Hearing his words, they nodded in a daze. Awesome. But, how did you get that token? Don't tell me that we really won't be able to buy medicinal pills if we bring the money in? A man couldn't help but ask. When he thought about the existence of such an inconceivable pill, his heart couldn't help but stir. Chapter 1607. If he could get a medicinal pill that could help him advance, then as long as his strength improved, he would have a chance to compete for the position of the family's young master. Just as he was pondering, he heard the voice of the person beside him. I heard that the tokens came from a strike auction. Because the quantity is limited, even if someone gets a token, they won't sell it. They usually keep it in their own hands. Moreover, very few people can get it. My father spent a lot of effort to get the 2 tokens that he got. Unfortunately, after he bought the medicinal pill, the 2 tokens were taken back. This kind of place, not to mention that Master Zhao doesn't dare to provoke, even the big families in our city don't dare to rashly provoke. A man murmured. He really didn't expect that such an inconspicuous shop hid such a power. On the other side, in the pharmacy, Du Fan brought Guan Shilin inside to chat for a while. After learning that he had met with his master, he smiled and said, In that case, I'll take you back to see Madam first. Okay, I came this time to see my adoptive mother and tell her not to worry about Xiaojiu. Before she comes back, I'll stay here. Guan Shilin said as he stood up and walked outside with him. Du Fan asked him to wait for a while. After giving instructions to the clerk in the pharmacy, he took Guan Shilin out of the pharmacy and went to the courtyard where they lived. In the courtyard, Leng Xuan took care of Shengguan Wanrong. In addition to taking care of the family's affairs, Leng Hua occasionally went to the pharmacy with Du Fan. Because their master had been away for some time, without her, they always felt lonely. "Madam, the weather is getting cold. Put on the cloak." Ling Shuang was worried that she would catch a cold, so he took the cloak and helped Shangguan Wanrong put it on. Shangguan Wanrong pulled down the cloak and smiled gently at Ling Shuang. "Ling Shuang, sit down and chat with me." Hearing this, Ling Shuang responded and sat down next to her. However, she wasn't good at talking, so she didn't know how to talk to her, so she asked, "Madam, what do you want to talk about?" "Let's talk about Xiao Jiu. Tell me, how did you and your brother meet her?" she said with a smile, looking at Ling Shuang next to her with expectation. She regretted not being able to accompany her daughter as she grew up. She could only know what her daughter had encountered and done these years from the people around her, as well as from her own mouth. Ling Shuang thought for a while and then told her how she and her brother followed their master in detail. However, one thing led to another. When she finished one thing, she found that Madam would ask, and then. So, for 2 to 4 hours, she was the one talking, and Madam was the one listening. They weren't chatting at all. She really wasn't good at talking, so she could only answer when Madam asked. When she talked about how her master's identity was replaced, how her face was disfigured, and how she couldn't go home, she saw that Madam's eyes were slightly red and she was crying, so she quickly stopped. "Madam, it's all over. You don't have to be sad." She clumsily comforted her. Chapter 1608. Leng Hua walked in from outside. Seeing his wife in the courtyard with red eyes and tears, he was startled and asked, "Madam, what's wrong? Are you not feeling well?" At the same time, he looked at his sister inquiringly. "I'm fine." Shangguan Wanrong shook her head. Leng Hua stood up and said, "It's all my fault. I talked about Master's past and made you cry." Hearing this, Leng Hua was relieved and showed a gentle smile. "Madam, the past is in the past, you don't have to be sad. Master is very good now, I think she doesn't want Madam to be sad about her past." "Yes, I know." Shangguan Wanrong replied and wiped her tears. Leng Hua stepped forward and said, "That's right, Madam. Master's sworn brother is here. His name is Guan Shilin. Master should have mentioned him to you before." "It's him. He's here." Shangguan Wanrong was startled and stood up. "Xiao Jiu told me about her brother." "Where is he?" "He's in the front hall. He just arrived in the city today and said he met Master. He knew Madam was here so he came to see you." Leng Hua said, "He also brought news about Master." Hearing this, Shangguan Wanrong hurriedly said, "Then I'll go see him quickly." So, she let Leng Hua and Leng Hua accompany her and they went forward together. In the hall, Guan Shilin was drinking tea and waiting. Not long after, he heard footsteps outside and looked outside. When he saw who it was, he quickly put down his teacup and stood up. "Shilin greets mother." He stepped forward and knelt on one knee to greet Shangguan Wanrong after she entered the hall. Hearing him call her mother, Shangguan Wanrong hurriedly stepped forward and helped him up. Get up, get up." She helped him up and looked at him. Looking at the tall and sturdy man in front of her, Shangguan Wanrong nodded. "I've always heard Xiao Jiu mention you as her brother. Today I finally meet you. Come, sit down and talk." She motioned for him to sit down and at the same time walked to the hall and sat down. "Thank you, mother," Guan Shilin said with a smile. Then he looked curiously at the person sitting at the head of the table. When he saw her young face, he couldn't help but smile. "Godmother, Xiao Jiu has been looking for you for so long. Finally, she found you. If Godfather knew, he would be very happy." "Yes, it's not easy for that child either. I haven't been by her side for so many years, and I've let her suffer so much." She looked at Guan Shilin and said, "Fortunately, she has a brother like you to take care of her. She told me that you treat her very well and take good care of her. Thank you so much. This is what I should do." Speaking of which, she has helped me a lot. Guan Shilin was a little embarrassed. After all, he really didn't help his sister much. On the contrary, she helped him a lot. Hearing this, Shangguan Wanrong said, "We're family. Siblings should support each other and take care of each other. Although you two siblings are sworn brothers, you're better than biological siblings. When I found out that Xiaojiu had a brother like you, I was very happy. You must be tired from running around. I asked Ling Shuang to clean up a room for you. Later, eat something to fill your stomach and then have a good rest." Chapter 1609. Mose is also with her. That's good. Hearing this, she relaxed. She had heard her daughter talk about Xianyuan Mose before. Last time, he said that he would return to the Phoenix dynasty to hold the wedding after picking her up. She stood up and said, "You must be tired from the journey back. Let Ling Shuang bring you to eat something first, then have a good rest." "Okay." Guan Shilin stood up and nodded at her. At this time, no matter if it was Feng Jiu or Shangguan Wanrong, no one knew that Feng Xiao, who was far away in the Phoenix dynasty, had rushed over after receiving the news from Feng Jiu. Along with him was Feng Jiu's contracted divine beast, the ancient fire phoenix. At this time, they were on their way to the 8 great empires. At this time, Feng Xiao, who was dressed in black and covered in dust, sat down on a rock by the side of the road. He took out some water from his Qinkuan bag and drank a few mouthfuls. After receiving the news, he knew that Xiaojiu had found her mother. He couldn't wait any longer and prepared to go personally to bring them home. Fire Phoenix, who had received the news, said that she wanted to come along. Her father felt that the Phoenix dynasty was peaceful now, and the surrounding countries had allied with each other. Their position was very stable, so he let Fire Phoenix go with him so that he could take care of her on the way. Along the way, Fire Phoenix transformed into a bird and followed beside him. Although they met with a few dangers along the way, they passed through them safely. Fire Phoenix, who was shaped like a bird and had the color of fire, flapped her wings and flew down. She landed on Feng Zhao's shoulder and asked, "How do we find them when we reach the 8 great empires?" "We can find Moses' people to inform them," he said, then stood up and said, "Let's continue on our way." He took out a flying device and threw it up. He jumped onto it with Fire Phoenix and continued on their journey. Another half a month passed. Feng Jiu and Xianyuan Mose, who didn't know that Feng Xiao and Fire Phoenix were on their way, had already returned to the city. They were delayed by some things on the way. Otherwise, they wouldn't have spent half a month. Seeing Xianyuan Mose's body stiffening as they approached the courtyard, Feng Jiu was a little surprised and asked, "What's wrong? Are you not feeling well? Why do you feel weird?" Behind them, Grey Wolf, who was walking with Lao Bai, grinned silently. How was Master not feeling well? He was obviously worried about meeting his mother-in-law. "The last time I saw your mother, she was unconscious. This can be considered the first time we've met, right?" "I'm a little." He pursed his lips and told her the truth. As soon as he said this, he saw her next to him giggle with a shocked expression. He couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed. "What's so funny?" "I'm just worried about giving her a bad impression." Okay. I won't laugh. She smiled and waved her hand. Her eyes were still curved into crescents as she said, "What if she doesn't have a good impression of you? You won't marry me?" "That's impossible," Xianyuan Mose said in a low voice. "That's right. If that's the case, why are you so nervous? What's more, I've already mentioned you to my mother. She should have a good impression of you. Don't worry. She's a very nice person." She smiled with her eyes narrowed as she spoke. Holding his hand, she strode forward and knocked on the door in front of the courtyard. Leng Hua, who was inside, heard the knocking and came forward to ask, "Who is it?" Chapter 16:10. Hearing the sound, Leng Hua smiled and hurried to open the door. When he saw the people outside the door, he said happily, "Master is back." "Leng Hua, how is my mother recently? And, is my brother here?" Fengjiu walked into the yard with a smile and looked inside, but didn't see them. He opened the door and let them in, saying, "Master, don't worry. Madam is in good health. Young Master Guan arrived half a month ago. During this time, he went to the medicine shop whenever he was free. Today, he went out with Du Fan and hasn't come back yet. It's good that he's here." She nodded and asked, "Where's my mother?" "Madam and my sister are in the backyard." Leng Hua said, "Madam has been talking about you these days. If she knows that you're back, she will be very happy." Fengjiu and Xianyuan Mose looked at each other, and the two of them walked to the backyard. Hui Lang handed White to Leng Hua and followed them inside. Before they reached the backyard, Tun Yun, who was lying in the backyard, seemed to sense something. He stood up and ran out, "Master is back." Hearing this, Shengwan Wanrong, who was in the backyard, was stunned. Then she stood up happily and was about to walk out, "Xiaojiu is back." Leng Hua, who was next to her, hurriedly held her, "Madam, please sit down first. I'll go and see." As soon as he finished speaking, he saw several people coming in from outside the yard. "No need to see. It's us." Fengjiu's voice came with a smile. She let go of Xianyuan Mose's hand and walked quickly to her mother. "Mother, how are you? How are you recently?" "I'm very good. But you, did you encounter any danger outside? Did this trip go well?" Shangwan Wanrong took Fengjiu's hand and asked, looking her up and down to see if she was hurt. "No, with him here, I won't get hurt." Fengjiu smiled and pulled Xianyuan Mose forward. "Mother, Xianyuan Mose, do you still remember?" Shangwan Wanrong nodded. Her face was full of love, and she was very satisfied with Xianyuan Mose. "Yes, I remember. I had a quick glance at her, and I had an impression of her. Today, I see her again. She is really outstanding, and she is a good match for you. The last time she was rescued, she saw him before she fainted. When she woke up, she found out that he had something to do and left. Later, she found out from Shilin that he was protecting her daughter. She was relieved. Today, after seeing him, she increasingly felt that no matter whether it was in terms of bearing or aura, there were absolutely few people who could be compared to him. When Xianyuan Mose saw this, he stepped forward and bowed. "Greetings, Aunt Rong. We're family, there's no need to be so polite." She smiled and said to the two of them, "Come, sit down and rest." The two of them looked at each other and smiled, then stepped forward and sat down. "I'll tell the servants to prepare some food for the masters," Leng Shuang said, bowing and then retreating. When she walked out of the courtyard, she was stopped by Hui Lang. "Leng Shuang, long time no see. Did you miss me?" Hui Lang asked with a careless smile. When Ning Yi heard this, the corner of his mouth twitched and he glanced at him, then silently looked away. When Leng Shuang heard this, she looked at him, her beautiful face expressionless as she said, "No." Chapter 16:11. "Sister, Master probably hasn't eaten yet. Why don't you go to the kitchen and let them know first?" Leng Hua's gentle voice came, making Hui Lang's voice stuck in his throat and he stared blankly. "Okay." Leng Shuang responded and then moved away. Leng Hua looked at Hui Lang with a smile and asked, "What were you talking about just now?" "Hee, nothing much. But you, boy, your body seems to be a lot stronger than before. I haven't practiced for a long time. Why don't we go and practice?" Hui Lang patted Leng Hua's shoulder and asked with a smile. "Practice?" Leng Hua looked at him with a gentle and harmless smile on his face. "Yes, it's a good opportunity to test your skills and see if you've improved recently." "Is this the way to test my skills?" As Leng Hua spoke, his body suddenly moved, his feet hooked, and his hands clasped Hui Lang's hands, turned him around, and threw him out. Bang! Okay. Hui Lang fell heavily to the ground with a loud bang. He lay on the ground with his eyes wide open and held his breath. You little brat. Why didn't you give me a warning before you attacked? Do you know that this is a sneak attack? Ying Yi looked at Leng Hua with some surprise. Just now, his feet moved in an instant, and his hands and lower body cooperated to throw Hui Lang to the ground in an instant. That speed and strength really opened his eyes. This is not a sneak attack. I did ask. I asked if it was like this. Leng Hua looked at Hui Lang with a harmless and gentle smile. Okay. I was careless. Hui Lang could only swallow this loss. He knew in his heart that this brat must have done this because he didn't like him teasing his sister. He was magnanimous and didn't want to argue with him. The people inside heard the commotion outside, but they just smiled and ignored it. They sat opposite each other and talked about the things they had encountered recently. Finally, Feng Jiu took out the medicine. Mother, this is the antidote. Hurry up and take it. After taking the antidote pill, the residual poison in your body will seep out from your pores. Furthermore, no poison will have any effect on you for the next 10 years. In other words, this is not only an antidote, but also a medicinal pill that can make me immune to any kind of poison for 10 years. Shangguan Wanrong was somewhat astonished. What grade of medicinal pill is this? How can it be so magical? This is a 6th level upper grade antidote pill. Other than the 2 300-year-old antidotes as the main ingredients, I have also added more than 10 antidotes. Moreover, although this pill is only a 6th level pill, it has already formed a pill spirit. Hurry up and take a look. Feng Jiu poured the pill into his hand and handed it to her. Shangguan Wanrong took it and looked at it. She couldn't help but be shocked and asked in shock, Xiao Jiu, this was made by you. I made it. She nodded. You can actually refine this kind of medicinal pill. Your talent in alchemy is really unbelievable. I'm afraid that even the sect master of the Danyang sect can't refine this kind of medicinal pill. She still felt somewhat incredulous when she held this kind of medicinal pill in her hand. She was also an alchemist, so she naturally knew how rare this kind of medicinal pill was. However, her daughter could actually refine it. She wasn't even 20 years old and already had such high talent. It was really unbelievable. Chapter 16:12. Feng Jiu handed the pill to her and said, Mother, take it when you go back to your room. It will help you expel the toxins from your body. Okay, then I'll go back to my room first. Shangguan Wanrong took the pill and went back. Seeing this, Xianyuan Mose and Feng Jiu also stood up and walked out. Outside the courtyard, Feng Jiu looked at Shangguan Wanrong and asked, Are you tired? Do you want to rest? No need. Aren't you going to see your brother? I'll go with you. Xianyuan Mose said as he took her hand and walked out. On the other side, Guan Shilin and Du Fan rushed back after receiving the message from Leng Hua. As soon as they entered, Leng Hua smiled and said to them, Master is in the hall. Did Xianyuan come back with Xiao Jiu? Guan Shilin asked as he walked. Leng Hua nodded, yes, Yama Lord is also inside. They've already seen Madam. So Guan Shilin strode inside, Du Fan and Leng Hua followed behind him. Xiao Jiu, you're back. Did everything go well on the way? Guan Shilin asked with a bright smile as soon as he stepped through the door. Who knew that Feng Jiu, who was sitting in the middle of the hall, didn't look too good? Xianyuan Mose, who was sitting next to her, was sipping his tea and pretending not to see anything. Seeing this, he felt a little strange and asked, Xiao Jiu, what's wrong? Did something happen? Brother, you're too reckless. Feng Jiu said angrily and stared at him angrily, How could you sneak into the Danyang sect alone to assassinate the sect leader of the Danyang sect? If anything happens to you, what do you want me to do? Hearing this, Guan Shilin knew that he was in the wrong and made her worry, so he smiled awkwardly. It's actually not that difficult, and I'm here, aren't I? Look, I'm not missing an arm or a leg. He patted his arms and kicked his legs to show her that his limbs were intact and that he was not injured at all. You'll regret it when you get hurt, she said angrily. Aren't you going to tell us what happened? Didn't the Danyang sect realize it was you? Hearing this, Guan Shilin smiled confidently and said, Xiao Jiu, you underestimate your brother. Do you think I've wasted all these years? If I couldn't even assassinate someone, how could I have survived until now? At this point, he puffed out his chest and smiled. Do you know that I, your brother, am already quite famous in the mercenary world? One person is more than enough. Hearing this, Fengzhou didn't know whether to be angry or laugh. She was naturally happy that he was outstanding, but when she knew that he would do such dangerous things for her, she was angry and worried. If something happened to him, how could she be at ease? Shenyuan Mose put down his teacup and glanced at Guan Shilin, then said to Fengzhou, It's okay, he did it out of good intentions. Don't blame him. I'm not blaming him, I'm just worried about him. Fengzhou said, then looked at Guan Shilin and said, Brother, you're not allowed to do such things again. If you really want to do it, you have to tell me first and let me ask someone to help you. You can't keep me in the dark. Okay, there won't be a next time. Don't worry. Guan Shilin nodded, then looked at the two and asked, You didn't encounter any more assassins on your way, right? Was it peaceful? Chapter 16-13. Other than that assassination attempt, they did not encounter any other assassination attempts. However, it was not very peaceful on the way back. While they were talking, they suddenly heard a knock on the door. The people in the hall were slightly surprised. Seeing that everyone was here, they were a little surprised. Who else would come besides them? I'll go take a look. Leng Hua said as he walked out. The hall was not far from the door, so the sound of knocking naturally came from outside. When Leng Hua opened the door and saw two strangers standing outside, he was slightly surprised and asked, Who are you looking for? We're disciples of the Danyang sect. We're looking for. Before Luo Heng could finish his sentence, Chen Dao pulled him aside and finished his sentence. I'm Chen Dao and he's Luo Heng. We're here to look for Fengzhou. Hearing this, Leng Hua's eyes moved slightly. He glanced at the two of them and said, Please wait a moment. With that, he closed the door again. Looking at the closed door, Luo Heng's eyes widened. Why did he lock us out? That's too rude. Chen Dao glanced at him and said, Just wait. I'm not in a hurry, so why are you in a hurry? How can I not be in a hurry? We've been out for so long and asked around for so long before we found this place. We don't even know if she's here. Luo Heng muttered and said, Moreover, the sect leader is dead. The sect must be in chaos now. If we really can't find her, I think it's better for us to go back. No, this must be the place. Chen Dao said with certainty. Hearing this, Luo Heng could only stand outside and wait. Originally, his master had told them to remind Fengzhou of her safety after they found her. However, now that the sect leader was dead, the danger should be gone, right? Now that they met again, he did not know what to say. Inside, the people who were talking stopped and looked at Leng Hua when they saw him enter alone. Master, two people from the Danyang sect are outside. They're called Chen Dao and Luo Heng. They say they want to see you. When Fengzhou first heard that they were from the Danyang sect, he thought that they were from the Danyang sect. However, when he heard that it was Chen Dao and Luo Heng, he was stunned for a moment before saying in realization, It's them. Let them in. I know him. Yes. Leng Hua responded, then turned and walked out. Could it be that the people of the Danyang sect knew that I killed their sect master and came looking for me? Guan Shilin said, worried that he would cause trouble for her. I won't. Fengjiu smiled and said, these two are my friends in the Danyang sect. I don't think they're here for that. Seeing this, Guan Shilin didn't say anything else. He sat in the hall and drank his tea, waiting for the two to arrive. Not long after, under the lead of Leng Hua, two men walked in. Fengjiu, you're really here. Luo Heng was so surprised to see her that he even raised his voice. Chen Dao still looked casual. When he saw Fengjiu in red, he reached out to stroke his mustache and looked at the man in black sitting next to Fengjiu. TSK, what a coincidence. Not only did he see Fengjiu, but he also saw the Yama Lord of Hell's palace. Last time, he was wearing a mask. This time, he wasn't wearing a mask. So this was what he looked like. He was much more handsome and younger than he had imagined. Chapter 16-14. Chen Dao, did you see anything? She looked at him teasingly. Seeing that he was in good spirits, it seemed that he had returned to being the confident Chen Dao of the past after his legs recovered. I thought that the master of Yan Jian would be an old man, or at least a middle-aged uncle. I didn't expect him to be so young, even younger than me. Chen Dao stroked his mustache as he spoke. Fengjiu's lips twitched when he heard that. Even Xianyuan Mo's, who was drinking tea, choked on his tea when he heard what Fengjiu said. He coughed softly and glanced at the people below. Fengjiu looked at him speechlessly and asked, why is it an old man? At the very least, you know that I'm not even 20 years old yet. How could a young and beautiful woman like me take a fancy to an old man? That's why I said it was a surprise. I didn't expect him to be so young. His eyes swept toward Xianyuan Mo's again. Seeing his imposing manner, he couldn't help but think to himself, I'm afraid that this person isn't just the Yama Lord of Yandian. He must have some other identity that others don't know. Luo Heng, on the other hand, was a little restrained because everyone here was stronger than him, especially Fengjiu and the black-robed man on the main seat. Their powerful pressure and the aura of a superior made him not dare to breathe loudly. Hearing Chen Dao fearlessly say these words in front of the black-robed man, he couldn't help but move to his side and tug on his sleeve. Unexpectedly, Chen Dao's face was filled with impatience as he asked, why do you keep tugging on my sleeve? When the people in the hall saw this, a smile appeared on their faces. These two people were really interesting. Stop talking, do you want to die? Luo Heng glared, then said to Fengjiu and Xianyuan Mo's embarrassedly, he's like this. If Fengjiu knows, he doesn't mean any harm. Alright, don't be so restrained. Ling Shuang has prepared some food and wine. Let's go and have a drink. She looked at the two of them and said. Hearing this, Chen Dao immediately said, sure. We couldn't eat or sleep well while looking for you. Now that we're here, we have to be the host. Thus, Fengjiu asked Ling Shuang to prepare the food and wine, and the group moved to the side hall. After more than 10 dishes were served, Xianyuan Mo's, Fengjiu, Guan Shilin, Chen Dao, and Luo Heng sat down. Everyone else except for Ling Shuang, who poured wine for them. The rest. After drinking a round of wine, Fengjiu asked, you said you've been looking for me all the way. Why? What's the matter? Luo Heng and Chen Dao looked at each other. After a pause, Chen Dao said, actually, it's meaningless to talk about this now. Oh. What do you mean? She raised her eyebrows. The reason we came down the mountain to look for you was actually because of Duan Mubai's orders. He ordered us to come down the mountain to look for you. Chen Dao then told her the whole story. He told her why they were here, why they came down, and the recent news about the sect. Fengjiu was silent for a while. She didn't expect Duan Mubai to ask them to remind her. You're too late. She was ambushed a month ago. It was an assassination attempt by 4 powerful fighters of the fairy realm. Fortunately, she was lucky. Otherwise, Chapter 16-15. The two of them were silent. They had asked around on their way here, and naturally, they had also heard about this incident. They really did not expect it to be true. Moreover, it was an assassination attempt led by 4 fairy realm masters and dozens of people. Fengjiu was really lucky not to have died. Alright, this matter is already over. Let's not talk about it anymore. It's rare that we're all here today, so let's have a good drink. She raised her glass and toasted the two of them. This is a toast to the two of you. Thank you for telling me about this. Please. The two of them raised their wine cups and drank it in one gulp. As Fengjiu talked about the topic, the dining table gradually became lively. Xianyuan Mose did not speak much. He sat next to Fengjiu, and when he saw her drinking too much, he would say a few words of advice and put some food in her bowl. Fengjiu's smile when she looked back at him, and the deep affection and trust in her eyes also gave people an indescribable feeling in their hearts. This was the first time Chen Dao and Luo Heng saw the two of them interact. They used to be very familiar with Fengjiu when they were in the faction, but they had never seen her show such an expression and gaze. The two of them interacted so naturally and calmly, as if they were an old married couple who had known each other for many years. There was no need for too many words between them. A look, a smile, and an action was enough to replace everything else. The kind of tacit understanding that did not need to be said made them envious. If they could be like them in life, meeting a partner who knew and loved each other so well, what more could they ask for? Chen Dao and Luo Heng stayed there. Especially since they drank too much, when Leng Hua helped them to rest, they couldn't tell which direction was north, south, east, and west. They slept until the next morning. In the early morning of the next day, Shangguan Wanrong had been adjusting her qi since yesterday. Layers of black toxins seeped out of her pores. She asked Ling Shuang to prepare hot water for her to take a bath. Then she changed her clothes and walked out of the room. Perhaps it was because the daughter she missed so much had returned, or perhaps it was because the poison in her body had been cleared, she felt refreshed. Thus, she went to the kitchen early in the morning to prepare breakfast for everyone. Although there was a cook in the courtyard, she felt guilty when she thought about how she had not cooked a meal for her daughter for so many years and had to run around for her. She knew that her daughter liked good food and her cooking skills were not bad, so she wanted to make breakfast for everyone. Leng Shuang, who knew that she was going to cook, came to her side and said, "Madam, let me help you." "Okay, then help me. I haven't cooked for a long time, so I'm afraid I'm a little rusty." As Shangguan Wanrong spoke, she entered the kitchen with Leng Shuang. However, when she saw that there was not much meat and vegetables in the kitchen, she said to Leng Shuang, "It's still early. Xiao Jiu and the others won't get up so soon. Accompany me to go grocery shopping." "All right." Leng Shuang nodded and walked forward with her. When they were about to go out to buy groceries, they saw Guan Shilin preparing to practice martial arts in the front yard. "Godmother? What are you doing so early in the morning?" Guan Shilin walked forward and asked in surprise. Seeing that it was him, Shangguan Wanrong smiled and said, "I want to make breakfast for everyone. There isn't enough food in the kitchen, so I asked Leng Shuang to accompany me to buy groceries." "Grocery shopping? Okay, I'll go with you," he said, intending to go out with them. Chapter 16-16. It's okay, Godmother. I can help you carry your things. Let's go. He took the lead and walked to the outer courtyard to open the door for them. In fact, he was worried about the two of them going out. Leng Shuang didn't disguise himself, and his cold face was very eye-catching. His godmother's appearance was also very gentle and beautiful. He was still worried about letting the two of them go out. It was better to go with them, in case something happened and he couldn't explain to Xiaojiu. Seeing this, Shangguan Wanrong smiled and let him go. When the three of them left the courtyard and walked on the street, she realized that it was the right decision to let Guan Xilin follow them. The people on the street occasionally looked at her and Ling Shuang with amazement, and their gazes followed them all the way. Some stared at them and didn't look at the road and bumped into the people in front of them. Some even wanted to go closer, but after seeing Guan Xilin behind them, they didn't dare to go forward and could only watch from afar. Shangguan Wanrong secretly shook her head at this. She rarely went out and actually forgot about this man's bad nature of liking beauty. Under Guan Xilin's escort, they went to the market and bought everything they wanted to buy and went back. After sending them back to the courtyard, Guan Xilin went back to the front yard to practice his martial arts, while Shangguan Wanrong and Ling Shuang started to get busy in the kitchen. When Fengjiu woke up and found out that her mother and Ling Shuang were making breakfast in the kitchen, she washed up and went straight to the kitchen. Before she even stepped into the kitchen, she smelled the fragrance and couldn't help but take a deep breath. Wow! It smells so good. What delicious food are you making? I'm dying of thirst. She smiled as she leaned forward with her eyes squinted. Master. Ling Shuang called out with a smile and stepped back to let her come closer. Xiaojiu is awake. You came just in time. We just made some food here. Come and have a taste. Shangguan Wanrong said and let her taste. Hearing this, Fengjiu hurriedly went forward. It's nothing. Why would you need a taste test? You're looking for me. Seeing this, Shangguan Wanrong couldn't help but chuckle. She reached out and pinched her cheeks. Who exactly do you take after this greedy look? If I don't look like my mother, then I definitely look like my father. She smiled and said matter-of-factly. And, I also think it's like your father. Shangguan Wanrong nodded in agreement and picked up a small steamed bun for her to eat. How is it? How's the taste? When the small steamed bun entered his mouth, Fengjiu could not help but ask, Mother, did you really make this steamed bun? The culinary skills are too good, it's delicious. Really? It's good that you like it. There are a few other dishes that aren't ready yet, but these side dishes are ready. Come and have a taste. She then brought Fengjiu to the side and let her taste the side dishes one by one. Seeing her satisfied expression and hearing her praise, Shangguan Wanrong's heart was very happy and satisfied. She looked forward to the day when the family would be reunited. When that time came, she would definitely go into the kitchen every day and make delicious food for her daughter to make up for what she owed her all these years. When breakfast was served, Shangguan Wanrong asked Leng Hua to call people over to eat breakfast. When everyone arrived one after another, Chen Dao and Luo Heng saw Shangguan Wanrong appear and cried out in alarm as if they had seen a ghost. Chapter 16-17. Shangguan Wanrong looked at the two of them in surprise. She did not really remember who they were, but since they could call her martial aunt Shangguan, they should be from the Danyang sect. Fengjiu slapped her forehead. Oh right, I forgot to tell you. She looked at Chen Dao and Luo Heng embarrassedly and said apologetically, I should have told you earlier. This is my mother. What? Luo Heng looked at Fengjiu in shock, then looked at Shangguan Wanrong. He found it hard to believe. Fengjiu was actually martial aunt Shangguan's daughter. Heavens, what kind of relationship was this? When Chen Dao heard this, he suddenly understood. So Shangguan Wanrong was Fengjiu's mother. If that was the case, then all these things made sense. Why did Fengjiu sneak into the Danyang sect to become an odd-job disciple, and why did he cause all these trouble in the sect? Most likely, Shangguan Wanrong had something to do with it, and Duan Mubai should know the reason. Otherwise, he would not have asked them to inform Fengjiu to be careful of an assassination attempt after Fengjiu killed his master. He was not clear about the twists and turns in this matter, but he knew that Fengjiu would never kill someone for no reason. The three young peak master must have done something extremely overboard. Otherwise, it was impossible that even his disciple would not stand on his side. Mother, this is Chen Dao, and this is Luo Heng. You should have seen them before, but you probably forgot about them. Fengjiu introduced them as she walked to Chen Dao and Luo Heng's side and patted their shoulders. I played with them the best in 3 Young Peak, especially senior brother Chen. He helped me a lot. Other people didn't notice anything else, but Xianyuan Mose saw her walk up to the two of them and put her hands on their shoulders. That intimate gesture and that physical contact made him feel like it was an eyesore. Therefore, he walked forward and came to Fengjiu's side. His low and magnetic voice said seriously, "They did not know that you were a girl before, but now that they know, it is not good for them to be too close to you. Didn't you get up and see that their bodies stiffened when you put your hands on their shoulders?" As he spoke, he withdrew her hands from their shoulders. At the same time, he pulled her into his embrace and sat down at the table, pulling her away from the two of them. Chen Dao and Luo Heng were staring at Shangguan Wanrong in a daze and did not notice Fengjiu's hands on their shoulders. Also, although they knew that Fengjiu was a girl, because she was wearing a red robe and not a red dress, and because they had interacted with her before, they naturally thought of her as a man. However, they did not feel uncomfortable at all. Therefore, when they suddenly heard Xianyuan Mose's words, the two of them were stunned. Chen Daoxian reacted first and merely smiled, but didn't say anything. Luo Heng, on the other hand, didn't react and instinctively said, "No. We are very comfortable. Don't talk about hooking up, when we were in the peak, we." Before he could finish speaking, he felt Chen Dao bump into him. He paused and turned around to look at him. "What?" Chen Dao glanced at him and then looked away, indicating for him to look at Xianyuan Mose, who was emitting a dangerous aura from head to toe. He was speechless. This boy usually looked quite smart, but why was he so stupid sometimes? Chapter 16-18. Feeling that the atmosphere was not right, and that everyone was staring at him, he knew that he had said something wrong no matter how slow he was. He immediately smiled embarrassedly. "Actually, it's not that. It's just that when we were in the peak, Fengjiu often helped us do things, and we all treated him like a brother." Seeing this, Shangguan Wanrong on the side smiled and said, "All right, sit down. Today's breakfast was personally made by me. Have a taste and see how it tastes. Come, you two sit down. Just treat this place as your own home, don't be restrained." "Thank you, Martial Uncle Shangguan," the two said as they sat down. Fengjiu pursed his lips and smiled. Others felt that he was dangerous, but she smelled his jealousy. This man was sometimes really narrow-minded. "Mother, let's take a stroll in Lily after breakfast." She knew that she rarely went shopping. Previously, she was imprisoned in the Shangguan family, and then she was imprisoned in the Danyang sect. Now that she had time, and the poison in her body had been removed, she could accompany her to relax. "All right, then you and Leng Shuang will accompany me for a walk. When we went out to buy groceries this morning, many shops were not open yet, but the market on the street was quite lively." Shangguan Wanrong said with a smile, but when she thought of what happened this morning, she felt a little worried. Their appearances were so outstanding, if there were no guards following them, would they cause any trouble? "All right, then let's eat first." Fengjiu helped her pick up some food, and then picked up a small bun for Xianyuan Mose who was sitting next to him. "Try this, my mother made it. It's very delicious." Seeing this, Xianyuan Mose's expression softened a little, and there was a faint trace of joy in his eyes. However, he still had a taut face with a hint of arrogance, and a cold look on his face. "You eat too." He also picked up some food for her, and then began to eat with his chopsticks. After breakfast, Guan Shilin and the others agreed to go to the martial arts field to practice. Xianyuan Mose returned to his room to practice after Fengjiu and the others left. At the same time, he ordered Hui Lang to protect them in the dark. If it was not necessary, he did not need to show up. On the other side, on the street. "Mother, let's go look for jewelry," Feng Jiu suggested. She saw that Gu Shijiu had nothing on her and was dressed simply and elegantly, so she wanted to buy some jewelry for her. Shangguan Wanrong thought she wanted to buy it, so she agreed, "Okay, a girl should have a few pieces of jewelry, and you, in the future, when you come home, you should wear more skirts, especially after you get married. You can't wear men's clothes as you wish." Hearing this, Fengjiu smiled until his eyes curved, and his voice was light and cheerful as he said, "Mother, don't look at Mose's appearance, he's actually henpecked. In the future, if I say one, he definitely won't say two. If I wear men's clothes, he definitely won't dare to tell me to wear women's skirts for him to see, so you can relax." In the dark, Hui Lang who heard this almost burst out laughing. His master was henpecked. Alright, it seemed a bit. Even the ghost doctor knew that he was henpecked. It seemed that in the future, his master would really be eaten alive. There was nothing to be done. Who told master to never take advantage of the ghost doctor from the past until now? Chapter 16-19. The emperor was not worried, but the eunuch was worried. Bah bah bah. He was not a eunuch. "Master, I know of a jewelry shop in the city that has a lot of styles. If you want to buy jewelry, you can go there and take a look." Leng Xuan, who was beside Fengjiu, said. "Alright, let's go to the shop you mentioned. Lead the way." Fengjiu gestured. "Yes." Leng Xuan replied and told them where to go. After walking around 2 streets and an alley, they arrived at the front of the jewel house. "This is the place," Leng Xuan said and looked at the magnificent shop in front of him. This shop was very famous in the city. Not only was the jewelry expensive, but it was also said that some of the best styles were unique. Even if you wore it outside, you would not look the same as others. Fengjiu held his mother's hand and walked in together. As soon as they entered, the shop assistant came up to greet them. "Dear guests, please come in." The shop assistant invited them in with a smile. At the same time, he secretly looked at Fengjiu and the other two. There was no other reason other than that the 3 of them were very good-looking. Even though he was used to seeing all kinds of people in the upper class in the jewel house, it was rare to see people like them. "Where are your best jewelry?" Fengjiu asked. He looked around and saw that there were quite a lot of people. However, this building was divided into 2 floors. It couldn't be that everything was placed on the first floor, right? "Dear guests, please follow me." The shop assistant led the way and brought the 3 of them to the back. They walked up the stairs to the 2nd floor. When they reached the 2nd floor, Fengjiu and the others saw that other than jewelry, the things on the 2nd floor were also magic tools. Furthermore, they were very exquisite magic tools. They could be used for self-defense and also as decoration. However, there were much fewer people here than on the 1st floor. There were only 7 or 8 people on the 2nd floor. "Dear guests, please sit here." The shop assistant arranged seats for them and left them to the staff on the 2nd floor. "What kind of jewelry are you looking for? Hair accessories or something else? I can introduce them to you." The person in front of Fengjiu was a delicate and pretty girl who looked like she was in her 20s. She was wearing the uniform of the 2nd floor of the treasure pavilion. What surprised Fengjiu was that the girls who were introduced to the customers on the 2nd floor all had decent cultivation. Furthermore, other than the people in the open, there were also a few pairs of eyes watching from the shadows. That's right, the jewelry on the 2nd floor wasn't just jewelry. Most of them were magic tools and the like. Naturally, the preciousness of the items on the 1st floor couldn't be compared to them. "Let's take a look at each one." As Fengjiu spoke, his gaze swept across the cabinet in front of him. His gaze fell on a complete set of jewelry. He pointed at the set and said, "This, let me have a look." "Okay, please wait a moment." The woman carefully took out the set of jewelry from the cabinet and placed it on the surface of the cabinet that was covered with a layer of black cloth. Only then did she say, "Dear customer, please take a look. This set has just arrived and was made by a refiner." As the woman introduced, Fengjiu held the set of jewelry and compared it to her mother's body. Because it was a set of aqua blue jewelry, it was quite compatible with her gentle temperament. Especially when the hairpin was pinned in her hair, it showed her gentle temperament. Chapter 16:20. Without saying a word, she took the hairpin from Fengjiu's hand and looked at it, asking, "This set of jewelry is quite nice, how much is it?" Fengjiu raised his eyebrows and glanced at the girl. The girl was tall and dressed in gorgeous clothes. She was about 16 or 17 years old and was very beautiful. Her appearance was not bad, but her manners were lacking. Perhaps she felt that someone was staring at her, so she impatiently looked up. However, when her beautiful eyes met Fengjiu's wicked gaze, the other party instantly blushed and quickly lowered her head. Unexpectedly, she placed the hairpin in her hand in front of Fengjiu. "Young master, take a look first." Her voice instantly became gentle, her eyes filled with affection, and her actions were shy. Fengjiu's lips hooked up, and a faint light flashed through his eyes. "Miss also wants to buy jewelry?" Shangguan Wanrong saw her daughter flirt with the girl in front of her and couldn't help but secretly shake her head, but her eyes couldn't hide the affection in them. This child was really strange and full of tricks. There were many times when one didn't know what she would do in the next moment. Yes. The girl didn't seem to expect that the red-clothed youth in front of her would talk to her, so she became nervous again. For no reason at all, it was because the man in front of her was so handsome that she couldn't take her eyes off him. That exquisite and beautiful facial features and that charming and wanton smile really had a fatal effect on women. She couldn't find another person like him in the entire city. Therefore, she was sure that this red-clothed youth was definitely from the outer city. If he was from the inner city, it was impossible for her not to recognize him. "I think this set of jewelry is more gorgeous and can better set off Mrs. Luxurious aura." Fengjiu pointed to a set of jewelry set with red gems in the cabinet as he spoke. The girl standing in the cabinet heard this and quickly took out the jewelry set, placing it in front of the well-dressed girl. "Miss, please take a look. Mrs. Temperament is luxurious. I think this set and this set are both suitable for Mississippi." Fengjiu pointed at two more sets, and then picked up a hairpin from one of the sets and placed it in the girl's hair. He then had someone bring a mirror and said, "Miss, take a look." When the woman saw the young man in front of her leaning over, she was so nervous that her heart started thumping and her face became even redder. She noticed the white-clothed woman sitting quietly at the side and couldn't help but ask, "Who is this?" From the looks of it, he was older than her, probably in his 20s. However, that peerlessly beautiful face and gentle temperament were things that even she could not compare to. As for the woman in black standing behind him, she should be a maid. Although her appearance was cold and elegant, one could tell at a glance that she wasn't a noble lady. "Oh. This is my mother," Fengjiu introduced generously. Hearing this, the woman was surprised. She quickly revealed a friendly smile and said, "Auntie, you're so young. I thought you were siblings." It seemed that she was from a noble family. Otherwise, she wouldn't have maintained herself so well. "Help me wrap up this set of jewelry." Fengjiu pointed at the set of aqua blue jewelry. Then, he looked at the woman beside him and asked, "Miss, do you like the first 3 sets of jewelry?" Hearing this, the woman was delighted, thinking that he was going to buy them for her. She nodded shyly and replied, I like them very much." Chapter 16:21. All right. She was so captivated by the man in front of her that she lost her sense of direction. She could only look at the person in front of her with a smile that made people unable to move their eyes away. When the maid beside the woman heard this, her heart skipped a beat. She glanced at the red-clothed youth and couldn't help but gently tug on her young miss sleeve. They didn't have that much money to buy these 3 sets of jewelry. If they couldn't take out the money at that time, they would lose a lot of face. On the other side, after Fengjiu paid the money, he handed the set of jewelry to his mother. "Mother, this set of jewelry is for you. Let's go look around somewhere else." He didn't even look at the woman again. Shangguan Wanrong smiled helplessly. "Mother usually doesn't wear these things. Even so, I bought it. Mother, even if you don't wear it, you still have to wear it." She smiled and narrowed her eyes. She lightly held her mother's hand and was about to leave. At this time, the well-dressed woman who saw this scene finally returned to her senses. She couldn't help but call out, "Young master, you're leaving just like that? Didn't he want to buy jewelry for her? Why did he leave?" Fengjiu looked back and smiled. "Miss, take your time looking around. We'll be leaving first. If fate wills it, we'll meet again." As soon as his voice fell, a smile bloomed on his lips. The woman stood there in a daze and didn't come back to her senses for a long time. "All right, if fate wills it, we'll meet again," she muttered until the person turned the corner and walked down the first floor. Only then did she come back to her senses. "Young miss, the 3 sets of jewelry cost a total of 2,888,000 gold coins. Because young miss bought 3 sets, I've removed the ending number and only charged you 2,880,000 gold coins. I wonder if young miss would like to pay in cash or with a black crystal card." Hearing this, the well-dressed woman was even more dumbfounded. "What? 2,880,000 gold coins? Why is it so expensive?" This was equivalent to 3 years of her family's expenses. How could she afford it? This is the work of a master refiner. Moreover, each piece is unique. The price of 3 pieces isn't considered expensive. The set of blue jewelry that the red-clothed young master bought just now cost 3,600,000 gold coins. The woman behind the counter said as she looked at the woman in front of her. She seemed to be a child of a noble family. However, if she was just a child of a noble family, she might not be able to afford the jewelry here. The woman's eyes widened. Why is that set so expensive? Is there anything special about it? Every single accessory in that set has defensive and offensive functions, and it can even withstand multiple attacks from a fairy realm expert. Hence, it's a little more expensive. In addition, it's made of blue crystal salt. Blue crystal salt can only be produced once every 10 years, and it has the effect of calming one's mind, regulating one's breathing, and automatically restoring one's body. So, it's only natural that it's priced at 3.6 million. If it was placed in an auction, it would definitely fetch more than that. Hearing the woman's words, the luxuriously dressed woman's pretty face turned red and white. Looking at the people around her who were pointing at her, she couldn't help but feel embarrassed and angry. She flung her sleeve and said, "I'm not buying." Then she walked out with large strides. If she didn't buy it, she would only lose face. If she bought it, she would have to bear her father's scolding and lecturing. She wouldn't be able to bear such a consequence, and she could only lose face today. Seeing the woman walk out with large strides, the woman behind the counter looked at her for a while, then took the 3 sets of jewelry back and put them away. Chapter 1622. After leaving the treasure pavilion, Shangguan Wanrong said, "Xiaojiu, this set of jewelry shouldn't be cheap, right?" She said that it was the work of a master refiner and that it was some kind of salt sea blue crystal, so it shouldn't be cheap. "Mother, I have plenty of money, so don't worry." She sold a bottle of pills, so how much money did she get? It had to be known that for alchemists and alchemists, what they didn't lack the least was money. That still can't be spent carelessly. How can it be called spending carelessly if I bought it for mother? She smiled and held her hand. There's a tea house up ahead, let's go have a cup of tea. Thus, the three people went to the tea house's second floor and sat down at a table by the window. They ordered a pot of good tea and a few plates of snacks, then sat and chatted while looking at the scenery. Mother, put on that set of jewelry. It's sky blue and isn't too eye-catching. Moreover, it has the ability to defend against attacks. Wearing it will only bring you benefits and no harm. Wear it here. Shangguan Wanrong was startled. I'll help mother put it on. She smiled and looked at her as she spoke. Seeing that her interest hadn't diminished, Shangguan Wanrong smiled and replied, all right. Then, she took out the set of jewelry and placed it on the table. The jewelry consisted of a space ring, a bracelet, a pair of pearl earrings, a drop-shaped necklace, and a hairpin. The designs weren't gorgeous or eye-catching. Even if it was worn on the body, people who didn't know the goods wouldn't be able to see the value of this set of jewelry. While helping her mother put it on, Fengjiu said, I originally wanted to learn how to refine weapons, so I bought some materials, but later found that I didn't have the time to learn this. You already know a lot, so you don't need to force yourself to learn too much. If you have time to learn too much, it will only tire you out. She softly said to her daughter, her heart filled with emotion. At her age, how many people had experienced the same things as her? She had already done very well. And, I'll wait until I have time to learn. Right now, let's take care of the matters in front of us first. She smiled and stepped back, then asked Ling Shuang, how is it? My eyesight isn't it good? Ling Shuang nodded. Yes. Hearing this, she smiled and said, I also think it suits my mother very well. Her voice paused for a moment before she continued, Mother, let's go back in a few days. It's quite a distance away, so I'm guessing that father must be waiting anxiously at home. We can depart any time. But, have you settled your matters here? She asked. There's nothing else. However, I've always wanted to visit the owner of the black market. Who knew that he would be away for a long time and I didn't get to see him? Last time, that person said that he would inform me if he came back. It seems that he hasn't returned yet. Fengjiu sat back down at the table. He rested his face on one hand and took a sip of tea with the other. He felt helpless about this. Who would have thought that he wouldn't have the chance to meet the owner of the black market? She was really curious. What kind of person was he? Then what should we do? Was she going to leave after seeing him? Or should we talk about it in the future? It should be fate that hasn't arrived yet. Let's talk about it in the future. When the time comes, I'm sure we'll meet. She didn't believe that she wouldn't have the chance to meet the owner of the black market. Chapter 1623. Calculating the time, her little uncle should be almost 3 years old, right? Thinking of this, she laughed. Mother, grandpa and grandmother gave birth to little uncle so young. She gestured while saying, at that time, I was the one who helped him give birth. He's white, tender, and chubby. Counting the time, he should be almost 3 years old now. When we get home, Mother, do you and Father want to give birth to a younger brother or sister for me to play with? Hearing this, Shangguan Wanrong lightly tapped the tip of her nose. You child, you're not serious at all. You really dare to say anything? I'm telling the truth. I quite like children, especially white and chubby children. They're even more adorable. That little uncle is really taking advantage. At such a young age, I have to call him little uncle because of his seniority. She curled her lips and couldn't hide the smile in her eyes. When we get home this time, he should be able to call people. I'll give him candy and coax him to call me aunt. Nonsense. Shangguan Wanrong couldn't help but laugh. Looking at her, she couldn't hide the smile on her face. What aunt? Really nonsense. His seniority is there. Even I have to call him little uncle. Speaking of this, she finally felt that it was strange. That's right, it's really weird to call a baby uncle. If it really doesn't work, I'll have him call me big sister. In short, I have to coax him to call me a few times. Think about it. If he says the words little niece from his little mouth, it'll be strange. Speaking of this, Fengjiu rubbed her hands and shivered. This thing called seniority really wasn't fun. Listening to the two people's conversation, Leng Shuang on the side also revealed a smile on his face. Seeing Master and Madam getting along with each other warmly and comfortably, the tenderness between the two of them really made people envious. On the other side, Feng Xiao, who was hurrying on his way, saw an inn on the side of the mountain road. Outside the door, there was a lantern swaying in the wind. He originally planned to stay and rest, but after seeing the inn's unusual calmness, he decided to continue on his way and rest at the next stop. However, just as he was about to leave, he heard a hoarse voice come from behind him. Moreover, the inn's door opened at this time. Since you're here, why don't you stay for a night? He turned around and saw that it was a hunchbacked old man. Looking through the open door, it was not difficult to see that there was no one else in the inn. No need, Feng Xiao said with a hint of vigilance in his eyes. In this place, there were no villages to be seen, no shops to be seen. It was indeed strange for this inn to be opened here. Moreover, this hunchbacked old man's cultivation was not weak, but he was running an inn here. He felt that it was better for him to leave as soon as possible. Ha ha ha. The old man laughed. His voice was hoarse and unpleasant to the ears. He gazed at the man outside and said, "You're a foreigner, right? That's why I don't know where this place is. Those who know this path won't take it. Only some outsiders would choose this path by accident." Hearing this, Feng Xiao looked at him and asked, "And then?" Chapter 1624. Hearing this, Feng Xiao stared at the old man for a while and fell into deep thought. After a long while, he said, "If so, then I'll have to disturb you." With that, he walked inside. He wanted to see what was so strange about this shop. Did the old man have any ill intentions, as he said? The fire phoenix on his shoulder looked around and said to Feng Xiao, "I don't feel this place during the day, but after the sky darkens, the yin energy becomes heavier." Feng Xiao nodded. He knew that this place was strange. He had to be careful both outside and inside the inn. However, when he walked into the inn, he couldn't help but be slightly surprised. When he was outside, he couldn't see anyone inside, nor could he sense any aura. However, when he walked in, he realized that the inn had a barrier around it. The barrier covered everything inside, so he couldn't see the people inside from the outside, but he could see the outside from the inside. Moreover, it wasn't that there was no one inside. On the contrary, it was very familiar. Rogue cultivators sat in groups of 3 to 5. Some were drinking wine, some were tasting tea, and some were chatting and laughing. The lively scene formed a strong contrast to the outside. Seeing so many rogue cultivators inside, he had a new understanding of this shop. This shop was definitely strange, but many rogue cultivators still came in. Moreover, it seemed that nothing had happened. At this moment, when the people in the inn saw Feng Xiao enter, they all stopped what they were doing and looked over. After sizing him up, they looked away. So he's a mystic cultivator. I was wondering who he was. I wonder where this mystic cultivator came from. He actually dares to walk this path. It seems like he has some guts. Otherwise, he wouldn't have come to this inn. Huh, that's true. Those people discussed. They didn't lower their voices because Feng Xiao was there. Instead, they talked with their backs to him. It was obvious that they didn't take him seriously. Compared to spirit cultivators, mystic cultivators would always be looked down upon. Unless you had powerful combat strength, you would be able to change people's opinion of you. Listening to those people, Feng Xiao didn't pay attention to them. Instead, he glanced inside and found that even if there were first and second floors here, there didn't seem to be any side rooms. Whether it was the first floor or the second floor, everyone was sitting at the table. Even if they were resting with their eyes closed, they were leaning against the wall. Thus, he looked at the old man and asked, "Are there no side rooms here?" "A side room?" The old man was startled, then he chuckled, "No, I only provide a place for you to spend the night. I don't provide a bed for you to sleep in." As he spoke, he walked to the counter and said to Feng Xiao, "Pay the overnight fee. 50 gold coins for the first floor and 100 gold coins for the second floor. Which floor do you want?" Hearing this, Feng Xiao looked up and down and asked, "Is there a difference?" Regardless of whether it was above or below, there were no beds to rest on, so why was the price different? Yes, of course there is a difference. The old man chuckled and looked at Feng Xiao. "It seems that you really don't know anything. Since that's the case, I'll remind you that with your strength, it's better for you to stay on the second floor." Feng Xiao wasn't lacking in money. Hearing the old man's words, he paid 100 gold coins and walked up to the second floor under the old man's lead. Only when he stepped onto the second floor did he realize that there was also a barrier on the second floor. Moreover, it was a defensive barrier that was even stronger than the one below. Chapter 1625. You can sit here. The old man led him to an empty table in the corner and asked, "Do you want some wine? The price is extra." "No need." Feng Xiao said, sitting down at the table and taking out some dry food from his space to eat. Seeing this, the old man smiled and walked down the stairs. "Hey, why are you taking this path too? And by yourself? You've got guts. You're also here for the elemental spirit fruit." A rogue cultivator looked at Feng Xiao and asked, "What elemental spirit fruit?" "I just asked for directions and knew it was closer, so I took this path." "I don't know what elemental spirit fruit is," Feng Xiao said, not knowing anything about the elemental spirit fruit. "Huh, so it's like that? Then I really don't know how to describe your luck." That person laughed and said, "Most of the rogue cultivators here are here for the elemental spirit fruit. It's a good thing, one can instantly increase one's strength by one level and increase one's strength by one stage. It's a good thing that's hard to come by. However, although this treasure is good, it's also very difficult to pick it. Because the elemental spirit fruit grows in extremely cold places and is guarded by thousands of ghosts, this mountain range is called the Ghost Mountain. Ordinary people don't dare to come here." Feng Xiao was slightly startled. He was just passing by, but he didn't expect to get involved in such a place. No wonder the old man said that it's impossible to walk out of this mountain at night. So this was the reason. The land of 10,000 ghosts. That's a place of extreme cold. Moreover, it seems that tonight is a full moon night, when the yin qi is abundant. If he stayed here, would it be? He was a little worried, and at this time, Fire Phoenix's low voice entered his ears. "Don't worry, I'm here for you." After hearing Fire Phoenix's voice, Feng Xiao's expression relaxed and he exhaled softly. Yes, he wasn't alone on this journey, he still had Fire Phoenix by his side. If there really was something he couldn't handle, Fire Phoenix would be there. Thinking of this, he calmed himself down. He didn't want any elemental spirit fruit, so it was better to take advantage of this time to rest and restore his spirit. Thus, he began to eat the rations in his hand and prepared some for the Fire Phoenix. When the rogue cultivators who were drinking and chatting saw the Fire Phoenix jump down from his shoulder, they all laughed. "It can't be. Is this bird your contracted beast? It's too shabby. What's the use of a bird that can be pinched to death? I didn't expect a mystic's contracted beast to be like this." That's right. Mystics aren't strong enough to begin with, and they even contracted such a small bird. This is really an eye-opener. Ha 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 ha. Feng Jiu, who was eating his rations, looked up at them and said, "I think, what kind of contract beast I contract has nothing to do with you. It doesn't matter. We're just interested in watching." As one of them spoke, he shook his head and ignored Feng Xiao. Instead, he said to the rogue cultivators at the same table, "Come, come, let's have another drink." Feng Xiao averted his gaze. After instructing Fire Phoenix, he set up a small soundproof barrier around him, then closed his eyes and leaned against the wall to rest. Without the voices outside, the entire world seemed to have quieted down. Coupled with the fatigue from rushing all the way here, he actually fell into a deep sleep not long after. Chapter 1626. It was as if there were pairs of invisible hands slapping on the door of the inn, making banging sounds. The lanterns outside the door swayed in the wind. The flames had been extinguished by the wind, leaving only darkness. Hearing the commotion outside, everyone in the inn quieted down. Except for a few people who were drunk and lying on the table, everyone else stared outside with vigilant expressions. The people on the first floor of the inn were like this, and so were the people on the second floor. However, compared to the people on the first floor, they were more at ease because they had an extra layer of protective enchantments. While everyone was vigilantly staring below, in the corner of the second floor, Feng Xiao was still sleeping. Because he had set up a soundproof enchantment, he couldn't hear the sounds outside. Naturally, he also couldn't hear the strange and frightening whistling of the wind. Chi. This person is quite carefree. A rogue cultivator glanced at the sleeping Feng Xiao and sneered, "Later, you won't even know how you die." The others also glanced at Feng Xiao in the corner, waiting for a good show. As the night deepened, it was getting closer to midnight. Some people were already preparing to go out, while others planned to watch from the sidelines. The origin spirit fruit had to be obtained. It was less than 100 meters away in the back of the valley. The people on the first floor went out together. Although they knew that the yin energy was the strongest at midnight, tonight was the time when the origin spirit fruit was ripe and fell to the ground. Even 100 ghosts would fight for it, let alone them. One had to know that even if a ghost obtained the origin spirit fruit, it would still have 100 years of cultivation. And if they wanted the origin spirit fruit, they would have to compete with 100 ghosts. The people in the inn went out one by one. Some went out together, some went out alone. Gradually, even the people on the second floor went out. Only the old man shuttled back and forth in the inn to pack things. When he came to the second floor, he found Feng Xiao sleeping in the corner. The old man smiled and walked to the side to sit down. At midnight, the entire moon was covered by dark clouds. At this moment, the inn's door was blown open by a gust of wind. The chilly night wind was accompanied by ghostly cries and wolf howls. Faintly, a white shadow floated in. The table on the first floor was destroyed and pushed to the side. Countless white shadows floated in from the door and ran around. The few drunk rogue cultivators on the first floor suddenly stood up after a fierce shake. Ha 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 ha. Loud laughter rang out from the few rogue cultivators. Under the suppression of the pressure, the airflow in the air vibrated faintly. Their faces were ferocious. After sweeping their gazes fell on the few remaining people on the second floor. They have been possessed by ghosts. The expressions of the rogue cultivators on the second floor changed. When they saw the possessed rogue cultivators trying to break the barrier and come up, they couldn't help but look at the old man sitting on the side. Can this barrier stop them? The old man stroked his beard and glanced down. This barrier is used to stop ghosts, not people. If there are no accidents, this barrier won't be able to block more than a few attacks from those people. What? You damn old man. If it can't block more than a few attacks, you still have the nerve to charge us 100 gold coins. The rogue cultivators shouted in exasperation. They raised their swords and prepared to fight. Chapter 1627. Feng Xiao, who was in the corner, was also targeted by the ghosts. However, the masculine aura on his body was too strong, so not many ghosts stepped forward. Only a few of them with heavier yin aura dashed forward, but they did not dare to approach him. This was because the fire phoenix, who had landed on Feng Xiao's shoulder, had released her aura. The powerful ancient aura and the masculine aura on Feng Xiao's body made the ghosts not dare to approach him. Furthermore, another reason was that he was the emperor of the Phoenix dynasty. His aura was extremely intimidating. Other than a few ferocious ghosts, ordinary ghosts did not dare to offend him. When they saw the ghosts surrounding the sleeping person and not daring to approach him, the wandering cultivators on the second floor could not help but widen their eyes in astonishment. Who on earth is that person? These ghosts are actually afraid of him? Even the elder's eyes flashed with astonishment. He did not expect to see such a scene. He had originally thought that Feng Xiao's strength was ordinary, but looking at the situation now, it seemed that he had underestimated him. The ghosts could not do anything to Feng Xiao, but the wandering cultivators who had been possessed by ghosts raised their swords and sabers and fiercely slashed at the sleeping Feng Xiao. Seeing this, the fire phoenix woke Feng Xiao up. Almost at the same time that the fire phoenix spoke, Feng Xiao opened his eyes and drew the sword at his waist, blocking the wandering cultivator's attack. Clang! Whoosh! He suddenly stood up, and his aura immediately filled the air. This was the aura and pressure of a martial saint. It was powerful and had the aura of a ruler who had been in a high position for a long time. His tiger eyes were sharp and intimidating. Before he had become the emperor of the Phoenix dynasty, he had been the imperial general. His battle strength was astonishing, and his aura was even more intimidating. Now that his battle intent had been aroused, the aura in the air on the second floor seemed to fluctuate. When the others saw this, their eyes narrowed. Wasn't this person a mystic? How could he have such an aura? The elder retreated to the back and watched quietly. Looking at the situation, only this person in the entire inn was surprised. The sharp swords and sabers mercilessly slashed out, and a sharp and intimidating aura spread out in the air. The clanging sounds of swords and sabers clashing against each other, as well as the screams and wails of the ghosts, entered one's ears. A gale suddenly rose and the inn was blown to the point that it was on the verge of collapsing. The wooden blocks on the roof fell down amidst the gale and the airflow. The few large pillars supporting the inn were cut down by the sword Qi during the battle. With a rumbling sound, the entire inn instantly collapsed into ruins. At the same time, several figures flew out from the ruins. They rushed out of the collapsed inn and stood in the middle of the night. When Feng Xiao, who was standing in the air, saw the scene outside the inn, his face couldn't help but become serious. Everywhere he looked, there were ghosts everywhere. The whole mountain was filled with a gloomy aura. Howling sounds were constantly coming out. It was very frightening. It really is the land of 10,000 ghosts. He murmured, frowning slightly. He had no intention of getting involved in these matters, but the current situation seemed to be beyond his control. Since we're here, let's get involved. Didn't they say that the origin spirit fruit was something good? Let's go pick one and join in the fun. The fire phoenix stared at the front with great interest. Since they couldn't avoid it, they might as well snatch it. Chapter 1628. Feng Xiao glanced at the few of them and saw that the old man had an air current protecting him, like a protective shield, preventing the ghosts from approaching him. As for the other few people, they were in a sorry state and were still killing the ghosts that were pouncing towards them. Seeing this, Feng Xiao threw out his flying device and flew forward with his sword in hand. He infused his sword with spiritual energy and swung it until he was 100 meters away. Seeing the scene in the valley, he was about to go down when he heard the fire phoenix's voice. Wait a minute. What's wrong? Feng Xiao asked. There's poisonous fog down there, that Holy Spirit fruit should be a glowing object in the middle of the poisonous fog. If we go down there, it'll be difficult for us to escape. Listen to me, we'll do this. The fire phoenix suggested and told him the plan. Hearing this, Feng Shao paused and asked, "Are you confident?" "Don't worry, we can deal with these small problems." The fire phoenix raised its chin and said confidently. "Good." After he responded, he turned around and headed towards the path he wanted to pass through. While no one was paying attention, the fire phoenix flapped its wings and flew down the valley. Seeing Feng Shao heading in another direction, other than the old man, everyone else thought that he was afraid and did not dare to go down, so they sneered, "I thought that he really had some skills and was a real man, but it seems that he's just a so-so." The old man did not say anything. He watched as Feng Shao rushed out of the ghost array and entered the mountain of enchantment, gradually disappearing into the distance. The mountain of enchantment in the ghost mountain was set up with a spirit enchantment. It was not something an ordinary cultivator could walk out of. Especially at night, the array was even more changeable. He wanted to go out and take a look, but he was entangled by the ghosts that suddenly rushed out, so he could only retreat step by step. About the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, the valley suddenly emitted a phoenix cry, and flames soared into the sky. The raging flames instantly spread to the entire mountain top, and the surging flames illuminated the entire night. The raging flames drove away the cold air, and for a moment, everyone was shocked and screamed. Hiss! It's the ancient divine beast fire phoenix. Heavens! Why would the ancient divine beast fire phoenix appear here? Hiss! This fire phoenix is actually here to steal the Holy Spirit fruit. Where did this ancient fire phoenix come from? Who is its owner? Damn it! What did it want the Holy Spirit fruit for? That thing is useless to it. For a moment, cries of surprise and screams mixed together. Those rogue cultivators all felt that it was inconceivable. Although the Holy Spirit fruit was a saint-grade spirit fruit, and eating one could greatly increase one's strength, it was not an existence that defied the natural order. However, such a Holy Spirit fruit had actually attracted an ancient divine beast to fight over it. Furthermore, it had immediately isolated the surroundings with a fire, and the Holy Spirit fruit was also plucked by it. Seeing the fire phoenix soar into the sky, flapping its wings and disappearing into the night, everyone was dumbfounded. They had worked hard for more than half a month, guarding for more than half a month, all for the sake of this Holy Spirit fruit. But in the end, a bird had beaten them to it. Fine. Even if this bird was an ancient divine bird, why would an ancient divine beast appear out of nowhere to snatch something from them? Which despicable bastard had ordered it to do this? It was too simple, too hateful. Chapter 1629. 10 days later, deep in the mountains, 3 bolts of heavenly lightning struck down one after another. Then, peace was restored. The heavenly lightning came suddenly and left quickly. Because it was deep in the mountains, it did not alarm anyone. Deep in the mountains, Feng Shao, who was sitting cross-legged, exhaled softly. He slowly opened his eyes, and a strange light appeared in his eyes. He had used 10 days to advance from the martial saint realm to the martial god realm after consuming the origin spirit fruit. Finally, he had successfully entered the martial god realm and became a martial god. The sudden increase in his strength had restored his appearance to its peak. Now, it was as if time had not left any traces on his face. Now, even if Fengjiu stood in front of him, he probably would not be able to recognize him. Upon entering the martial god realm, one's strength would be comparable to a fairy realm fighter. Not only would the aura around one's body be greatly different, but even a single gaze or the release of pressure would have an absolute power of intimidation. This was especially so since there were very few Xian martial artists who could cultivate to the martial god realm. It's as if you've changed into a different person. The fire phoenix looked down from a branch and was very surprised. Its strength had increased because it had entered the growth period, but the human strength had increased because he had become younger. Fire Phoenix, thank you so much for these past few days. He thanked it in a low and dignified voice. It's nothing. The Fire Phoenix flapped its wings and said, Xiao Jiu will be very happy that you've advanced. But now that you've become younger, Xiao Jiu probably won't be able to recognize you as her father. Look at you now, you're almost catching up to Guan Shilin. Hearing this, Feng Xiao could not help but laugh loudly. You're exaggerating. Although he said this, he was in high spirits. He was very happy that he had successfully advanced to the martial god realm. After all, every time he advanced to the next level, his strength would increase again. It was a good thing for him, his family, and the empire. Only when his strength was so strong that he could not be offended could he protect the people he wanted to protect. We have to set off quickly. We've been delayed for so long. I wonder where Xiao Jiu and the rest are now. We have to find people from Yan Jian to ask for information. Then let's go. The Fire Phoenix flew to his shoulder and stopped. After Feng Xiao took out his aircraft and threw it into the air, the man and the bird left the forest where they had stayed for 10 days. On the other side, Feng Jiu and the others did not leave. They had originally planned to return to the Phoenix dynasty, but when they received news that the ancient divine beast, Fire Phoenix, had appeared in the border city, they cancelled their plans to return. While waiting, they asked around for more information. The ancient mythical beast Fire Phoenix had appeared. There was only one primordial Fire Phoenix in this world, and it was her contracted beast. Now that it had appeared here, it must be the Fire Phoenix from the Phoenix dynasty. Other than her father, there was probably no one else who could come with it. However, she did not expect her father to put aside everything he was doing and bring the Fire Phoenix along. He must be worried about them, or perhaps he was anxious to see her mother. Xiao Jiu. Chapter 1630. Don't worry. With the Fire Phoenix accompanying him, nothing will happen to father. Feng Jiu chuckled. Holding her hand, he pulled her to the table and sat down. Mose has already sent people to look for him. There should be news of father soon. Also, we'll wait for him here. This way, we won't miss him. As long as there's news and we know where he is, we can go over. I hope he's fine. Shangguan Wanrong sighed. She was still a bit worried. Because she knew from her daughter that Feng Zhao's strength wasn't very strong. If that kind of strength went to a place like the 8 great empires, she was afraid. Ghost Doctor. Hui Lang walked in with a smile on his face. Master sent me to tell you good news. Is there news of my father? Feng Jiu looked at him and asked. No. Hui Lang shook his head and said, this is strange. Until now, we still haven't found your father's whereabouts. Master guessed that the path he took was a bit remote. If we want news of him, it will take another 2 days. The good news I came to tell you is that there's news of the Wanyan Qianhua you asked us to look for. Oh. Her expression lit up and she asked, where is she? The Wanyan family is a hidden family. News and matters related to the Wanyan family are rarely spread outside. Our people only found out that the Wanyan family is a hidden family and that their family may be related to some forces in other places. We don't know anything else. Hearing this, Feng Jiu nodded. Since it's a hidden family, they naturally won't easily let outsiders find out about their news. Fine, let's leave it at that. If fate wills it, we'll still see her in the future. Originally, she wanted to take advantage of this time to look for Wanyan Qianhua, her sworn sister, in the 8 great empires. She didn't expect that the other party's family was a hidden family. Since that was the case, she didn't investigate further. She believed that if fate willed it, they would meet sooner or later. That's right, where's your master? Why haven't I seen the two of them? Feng Jiu asked. She thought about how she hadn't seen Shenyuan Mose these past few days. Where did he go? Recently, Master has been cultivating whenever he has time. He just advanced 2 days ago and is currently researching a new sword technique in the training field. Ghost Doctor, do you want to go over and take a look? Hui Lang couldn't help but suggest. Recently, because the Ghost Doctor had been accompanying her mother, Mistress was like a resentful woman who had been left out in the cold. If she wasn't cultivating, she would be practicing the sword. If it was anyone else, he would have directly chased them away, but this person was the Ghost Doctor's mother. No matter how dissatisfied his master was, he couldn't open his mouth to chase them away. He could only keep it in his heart, or else he would vent his anger on them. Hearing this, Fengzhou's eyes flashed. She said to her mother, "Mother, I'm going to check on Mose. If you're bored, I'll call Leng Shuang over to accompany you." "It's fine, you can go. You don't have to stay here with mother all day. If you have time, spend more time with Mose. You're both about to get married. In the past, you were always separated from each other. Right now, it's a good time to cultivate your feelings." She gently patted Fengzhou's hand, indicating for her to go. Then I'll be going." Fengzhou stood up and followed Hui Lang out. She asked, "Hui Lang, how's your master's mood today?" Behind them, Shangguan Wanrong smiled slightly when she heard her daughter's voice. Her heart was filled with satisfaction. Chapter 1631. Master always keeps a straight face, so it's hard to tell. The Ghost Doctor will know when she gets there. Hui Lang grinned as he spoke, while muttering in his heart. Even if he knew that Master was in a bad mood due to being neglected, he still couldn't expose Master's secret. Hearing this, Fengzhou raised her eyebrows, and with a smile on her lips, she walked forward. Until she arrived at the training grounds, and saw the black-clothed Xianyuan Mose with a powerful aura practicing his sword. Her eyes slightly moved, and in the next moment, she lightly tapped the ground with the tip of her foot, and leapt up, taking out the Qingfeng sword from the air and stabbing it towards him. Xianyuan Mose glanced at her from the corner of his eyes, and saw her flying towards him, so he waved the sword in his hand to block. Only to hear the sound of a stream of air passing by, and the sharp qi of the sword rushed towards Fengzhou. Clang! The two swords collided, and a clear clang rang out. Sparks flew out, and the two streams of air mixed with each other, and then disappeared without a trace. Seeing the sword in Xianyuan Mose's hand, Fengzhou's eyes lit up. It's the Xianyuan sword. This was his sword, and it was also an ancient divine sword that wasn't inferior to the Qingfeng sword. In that moment, she had the thought of comparing notes with him, and wanted to see what would happen if these two swords collided. Thus, the hand holding the sword turned, and she once again leaned forward. Seeing this, Xianyuan Mose's deep black eyes moved, and he immediately retreated. The tip of his sword turned, and his sword form changed. He used the sword in his hand to wrap around her Qingfeng sword, and led her to move, leading her in swinging the sword. Fengzhou was surprised, and no longer attacked, but followed him. Wherever his sword went, how he swung it, she would follow and learn. After a whole set of sword moves, she was surprised to find that this set of sword moves could be used alone or in pairs. A single person's sword was fierce, and the sword's edge was cold, but when two people swung their swords, the power was stronger, and they could release a stronger battle strength. Hui Lang and Ning Yi stood outside the training grounds, watching the two people, one black and one red. The man was domineering, and the woman was beautiful. The calm black clothes and the dazzling red clothes intertwined, constantly changing, giving people a visual impact, and making people unable to move their eyes away from the two people. Master and the Ghost Doctor are really too compatible. Say, how can there be a person like the Ghost Doctor in this world? Before meeting the Ghost Doctor, Master, there was never a woman, and I was worried that he was gay, but luckily, a woman like the Ghost Doctor appeared. Hui Lang grinned, feeling both emotional and gratified. Although they were master and servant, they were not ordinary masters and servants. Seeing that master could meet someone he liked, he was really happy. Ying Yi, who was beside him, glanced at him. You're lamenting that you haven't met the right woman. I remember that you've been single for over 20 years, so why aren't you worried that you'll be gay? Hearing this, Hui Lang's eyes flashed with bad intentions. He looked at Ying Yi, and suddenly revealed a shy and embarrassed smile. He reached out and hugged his arm, asking with a smile, Ying Yi, how did you know? You also felt it, right? As he spoke, that hand kept rubbing his arm, making Ying Yi jump up in shock. He quickly slapped his hand away, and stared at him defensively. If you want to talk, then talk. What's a grown man like you doing being so clumsy? Chapter 1632. Stop. Ying Yi hurriedly interrupted him and stared at him. Who's your childhood sweetheart? Don't talk nonsense. Aren't we? We grew up together, and we trained together, ate and slept together. We even bathed together and wore the same pants. I've even seen you naked. We're so close. Aren't we childhood sweethearts? As soon as Ying heard his words, his face darkened, and the hairs on his body stood up. Especially when his eyes were darting around, it made him feel very strange. Why didn't he notice Hui Lang's interest in this before? Thinking of this, he couldn't help but shiver. He stared at him warily and quickly flashed away to wait on the other side. Watching him leave as if he was running for his life, Hui Lang smiled triumphantly. You want to fight me with paralysis? Aren't you looking for trouble? He snorted and watched the two people practicing swordsmanship in the martial arts field. After about 2 hours, the two of them stopped. At that moment, Feng Jiu was already drenched in sweat, but her eyes shone brightly. She looked at Xian Yuanmo's in front of her and asked excitedly, Did you really create this set of sword techniques? Do you like it? Xian Yuanmo's smiled faintly and reached out to tuck her hair behind her ear. His actions were intimate and natural. Yes, I like it very much. This set of swordsmanship is very lethal. If two people work together, they can complement each other. Their fighting power is extraordinary, and it's not easy to break the sword moves. By the way, what's the name of this set of swordsmanship? Xian Yuanmo's only felt his heart melt when he saw the excitement on her face and how she looked at him with amazement in her eyes. He also felt a sense of accomplishment. His manly heart was completely satisfied, and he faintly felt a sense of pride. This set of swordsmanship is called the Dragon Fengjiu sword. If it's used alone, then I'll use the dragon-shaped 9 swords, and you'll use the Phoenix Shadow 9 swords. This set of swordsmanship can be combined and disassembled, with endless changes. If it's combined into one, its power will greatly increase. Speaking of this, his voice paused, and a touch of gentleness and affection appeared in his deep eyes. He slowly said, Moreover, I created this set of swordsmanship for you and me. You have to remember the mantra I taught you before, and use it with this set of swordsmanship. In the future, you can pass this set of swordsmanship down to our children. What he wanted was actually very simple. He wanted to live together with his beloved and build a warm and happy home. Looking down, he felt that he wasn't far from his goal. Feng Jiu hearing this and laughed, We haven't even married yet and you're already talking about children? You're too impatient. Ghost Doctor, even if Master isn't impatient, I'm impatient. I also want to have a little master. Hui Lang grinned and raised his voice as he spoke. Seeing the two of them looking at him, he laughed and said, Moreover, if you have a little master soon, I, Hui Lang, can even help you raise one. Hearing this, Feng Jiu thought of Hui Lang carrying a little child on his back and holding a little child on his back. He couldn't help but laugh. Ying Yi appeared out of nowhere and said indifferently, If you really have a little master for you to raise, I won't be at ease. Chapter 1633. That's enough, we've digressed. What's there to talk about when I haven't even seen his shadow? Fengjiu smiled and raised her hand, indicating for the two to stop talking. She then turned to Xianyuan Mo's and said, "Do you want to go back and take a bath?" Xianyuan Mo's eyes moved, a dark light flashing through his deep eyes. He stared at her and moved his lips, "Yes." "Okay. Then let's go." She put away the Qingfeng sword, not noticing his deep eyes. She reached out and took his hand to leave with him. Watching the two leave, Hui Lang reached out and put his arm around Ying Yi's shoulder. He said mysteriously, "Hey, did you see the master's eyes?" Ying Yi glanced at him and shook off his hand, "Go away." Then he strode away and followed behind the two people in front of him, not too far nor too close. Back in the courtyard, Fengjiu ordered the servants to prepare hot water for her bath. When she entered the room, she found that Xianyuan Mo's had followed her in. She couldn't help but be startled. "You're not going to take a bath?" Xianyuan Mo's looked at her, "Of course." He entered the room and looked around. Then he came in front of the steaming hot tub. "It's just right for you to take a bath here. This tub is definitely big enough." Hearing this, Fengjiu's mouth twitched. "You're not serious, are you?" Xuanyuan's eyes moved slightly. He stepped forward and hugged her who was standing by the door. At the same time, he waved his hand to close the door and locked it. Fengjiu only felt her whole body being lifted up and directly walked inside. She was so stunned that she didn't know how to react. Xianyuan Mo's was a man who was inwardly passionate. He always had a cold and serious expression on his face, but he always wore red underwear. In the past, although he was impatient, he would always restrain himself. Especially when her mother was here, he didn't cross the line. But today, "Open your hand." His deep and magnetic voice entered her ears, and the man's unique warm breath sprayed behind her ear, making her feel numb, and she couldn't help but have goosebumps. Only then did she react. She was already standing by the side of the tub, and he was standing behind her. She didn't know what she was thinking, but she actually did as he said. She opened her hands and let him take off her clothes and outerwear. The red robe was undone. He raised his hand and threw the red robe to the screen. His hand moved up from her waist. When he touched her flat chest, he hugged her from behind and asked in her ear, "You're still wearing your chest?" "Yes." She replied, "I'm wearing men's clothing to wear a bra. When we're married, you're not to wear it anymore. After we get married." His voice was low and hoarse. His hand went to her underwear and took it off. Then he turned her around to face him. When he saw her snow-white shoulders and beautiful and sexy collarbones in front of him, his eyes couldn't help but darken. His gaze gradually moved down and fell on the white cloth wrapped around her chest. He remembered that she was full here. Now, such a full existence was squeezed under the white cloth. Looking at it made his heart ache, but at the same time, a flame ignited in his heart. Chapter 1634. When a slight bang sounded, the cloth was torn into small pieces and scattered on the ground, jumping into Xianyuan Mo's eyes. It made his breathing a little heavier, and a dark light floated in the depths of his eyes. His throat involuntarily swallowed, and his deep and burning gaze fell on her chest, unable to move away for a long time. So beautiful that his voice was hoarse, and his breathing seemed to have frozen for a moment. His whole person and mind became restless, and he had an impulse to fiercely take her. However, he had said that he would save the most beautiful night between them for the wedding night, so, looking at her beautiful face in front of him, her eyebrows were slightly raised, her eyes were slightly raised, and the corners of her lips were slightly curved with a trace of charm as she looked at him. Her entire body was emitting an enchanting and evil charm that made people want to commit a crime. He raised his hand, and almost in the blink of an eye, he took off his clothes. He reached out and took her into the bathtub. As soon as the two of them entered the bathtub, the water splashed out and overflowed all over the ground. The sound of water splashing could be heard, and the petals floated in the clouds. The faint fragrance of flowers filled the air and intertwined with that burning passion. In the evening Shangguan Wanrong, who had nothing to do, personally cooked a few dishes. Because Qingdao and Luoheng had already gone back, there were not many people present, so she only cooked a few dishes. After the dishes were all arranged, Shangguan Wanrong looked around and asked, "Ling Shuang, where is Xiaojiu? Why haven't I seen them yet?" Ling Shuang pondered for a moment and said, "Master should be in the courtyard. Then you go call Xiaojiu and Mose over for dinner." Shangguan Wanrong smiled and sat down to rest. She poured a cup of tea and took a sip, preparing to wait for them to come over. "Yes." Ling Shuang responded and turned to walk out. On the other side, Hui Langxing Yi, who was guarding outside the Fengjiu courtyard, did not say anything, but his eyes were brighter than usual. Ying Yi only occasionally glanced at the main courtyard, as if waiting for the two masters to come out. Hui Lang, on the other hand, was staring straight at the main courtyard. His heart was itching with curiosity. Did Master eat the ghost doctor? He hadn't heard anything for the entire afternoon. Could it be that the two of them were taking a nap inside? Nothing at all. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but ask, "Ying Yi, do you think it's done?" After asking for a while, he didn't hear any response from Ying, so he turned his head and elbowed him. "I'm asking you a question." "I don't know." Ying Yi said coldly. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw Ling Shuang not far away, so he signaled him to look at the person. Seeing Ling Shuang, Hui Lang grinned and quickly stood in front of her. "Ling Shuang, why are you here? What's the matter?" Seeing Hui Lang standing in front of her, Ling Shuang frowned, glanced at Ying Yi, and asked, "Why are you two here? Is the Yama Lord also here?" "That's good. Madam prepared dinner and asked me to invite Master and the others over." She was about to walk forward when she was stopped again. "Wait, wait, wait." Hui Lang looked at her with embarrassment. "Master and the others haven't come out yet. Don't go over and ruin things." "Ruin what?" Ling Shuang was startled and glanced at the courtyard. There were no two figures in the courtyard. Then, were they in the room? Chapter 1635. Dressed in a black robe, Xianyuan Mose walked out with one hand behind his back and the other in front of his abdomen. When he saw the three people standing outside the courtyard, he asked, "Is something the matter?" At this time, his voice was lazy and magnetic, as if he had just woken up and tasted the sweetness of a young man. There was a trace of satisfaction between his brows that could not be concealed. Seeing his expression, Hui Lang, Ying Yi, and Ling Shuang all had different expressions, especially Ling Shuang, who did not know what was going on. However, she did not think too much about it and just suppressed her doubts in her heart. She reported, "Madam has already prepared dinner and is inviting Yama Lord and Master to come and eat. Xiaojiu is still sleeping, let her sleep a bit more." Xianyuan Mose had just finished speaking when he heard Fengjiu's voice behind him. "I'm up, let's go together." Fengjiu lazily walked out of the room and rubbed her sore hands. At the same time, she angrily glared at the man who was smiling at her. This guy, she thought he would not be able to resist taking out his gun. She did not expect that in the end, the one who was tired to death was her 5 fingers. Rubbing her sore hands, she did not know what to feel in her heart. If it were another man, the raw rice would have been cooked long ago. But his heart moved, and in the end, he still did not cross the last line of defense. She knew that he cherished her, but seeing him endure it like that, her heart could not bear it. Otherwise, her 5 fingers would not be tired and numb today. "Aren't you tired? How about I have them bring the food over?" He stepped forward and hugged her. Looking at her red dress, her black hair falling behind her, and her lazy and charming appearance, he could not help but want to hide her and not let anyone see her. "You also know how to feel tired. My hands are so sore." She leaned into his arms and complained in a low voice. Hearing this, Xianyuan Mo's eyes flashed with a deep smile. He said in a low voice by her ear, "That only proves that your man's ability is too strong. You will have a happy sex life in the future." Hearing this, Fengjiu thought of the previous scene and could not help but blush. She rolled her eyes and pushed him away. "Ling Shuang, let's go." With that, she left with Ling Shuang. As he watched her walk forward, Xianyuan Mo's let out a deep and magnetic laugh. His deep, smiling, and tender gaze fell upon the red figure. He paused for a moment, then followed her footsteps with his hands behind his back. The two people's voices were lowered and Hui Lang and Ning Yi could only vaguely hear one or two sentences. However, seeing Master's satisfied expression, they could not help but guess, did Master really eat the ghost doctor? They went to the front to eat. During this time, Shangwan Wanrong saw that her hands were trembling and asked with concern. This made Fengjiu and Xianyuan Mo's both feel uncomfortable. In the end, they just made up an excuse. After eating, the two of them left in a hurry, preparing to go out for a stroll. In regards to this, Shangwan Wanrong was naturally very happy. Especially seeing that the two of them had such a good relationship, as their mother, she was very happy. Chapter 1636. Hearing this, Xianyuan Mo's laughed softly, "All right." As the night deepened, the lanterns on the streets lit up and people came and went. When the two of them walked into the streets and blended into the crowd, the surrounding men and women couldn't help but look at them. It was because the man was domineering and the woman was beautiful. One in black and one in red, they were a perfect match. It was as if they were celestial beings who had walked down from the heavens and didn't belong to the mortal world. Because the surrounding people's eyes were following them closely, the two of them didn't walk for too long. After walking around the city once, they went to the base of Yan Dian's power. After a few more days, there was still no news from Feng Shao. This made Fengjiu feel strange. Why was there no news? Did he not enter the city? That shouldn't be right. Until one afternoon, when she was resting on the roof with her eyes closed, she saw a figure in black robes walk out from the streets and stop in front of their courtyard. Seeing that person, she narrowed her eyes. That person looked to be in his 20s or 30s. He was tall and sturdy and was covered in dust. There was a colorful little bird perched on his shoulder. The more she looked at him, the more familiar he felt, especially that little bird. Fire Phoenix. She muttered softly, feeling a little surprised. She quickly got up and tapped the ground with the tip of her foot to jump over the wall of the courtyard. She landed in front of the man and stared at his smiling face. When she saw that familiar face, she could not help but open her mouth in disbelief. "Father?" "Xiao Jiu, I didn't expect you to recognize father at a glance." "Ha ha ha ha, as expected of my daughter." Feng Shao laughed loudly, his mellow voice carrying laughter. "On the way here, he was saying that you definitely wouldn't recognize him." Fire Phoenix flapped its wings and flew to Fengjiu's shoulder, intimately rubbing against her face. Fengjiu gently stroked Fire Phoenix's feathers with her fingers and smiled, "Thank you, Fire Phoenix, for protecting my father on the way here safely." "You're welcome. This is what I should do." The Fire Phoenix raised its head and stood on her shoulder, asking, "You won't blame me for not listening to you and staying in the Phoenix dynasty as a guardian beast, right?" "How could that be? Grandpa and the others are still there." "It's fine." She giggled before looking at her father and asked, "Father, when did you become a martial god? No wonder the people in Yandian said they couldn't find any news about you." "Ha ha ha, of course, my strength has reached the martial god realm, and my appearance has changed. Naturally, they won't be able to recognize me." With a bright smile, he told her about what had happened on the road and asked, "That's right, how is your mother now? Is she all right?" "Father, don't worry. Mother is fine. We originally planned to go back, but we heard the news that you came here, so we waited for you here." We haven't heard from you these days, so mother has been worried. If she sees you later, I think she'll be very happy. Fengjiu and Feng Xiao were chatting as they walked into the courtyard. Xianyuan Mose just happened to walk out. When he saw Fengjiu intimately leaning against a man, he couldn't help but frown. His gaze was fixed on the man's arm around her shoulder. Chapter 1637. However, just as he was about to step forward and test the man's skills, he heard Fengjiu's voice. "Zay, my father is here. Look, isn't he like a different person? No wonder we haven't heard from him." Hearing Fengjiu's smiling words, Xianyuan Mose's face stiffened. For a moment, his expression was a little strange, but it returned to normal in the blink of an eye. Fortunately, he always had a cold face. At this time, if one didn't pay attention, they wouldn't be able to see that he was different. "Congratulations, Uncle Xiao, on becoming a martial god." He stepped forward and congratulated. His voice was as calm as usual, and no one could hear the abnormality from before. "Hee, long time no see. How have you been?" Feng Xiao stepped forward and patted him on the shoulder. He said, "Thank you very much. I know you've helped a lot. This is what I should do." He smiled and said to Fengjiu, "Since Uncle Xiao is here, let's take him to see Aunt Rong first." "Yes, father. Mother has been waiting for you for a long time. If she knew you were here, she would be very happy. Let's go, I'll take you to see her first." Fengjiu took his hand and led him inside. Hearing this, Feng Zhao's heart moved. He was a little expectant, but also a little nervous. For a moment, his heart beat uneasily. Wanrong was about to see her. He had forgotten about her for more than 10 years and let her bear everything alone. Every time he thought of this, guilt rose in his heart. Did she blame him? Did she blame him? He didn't know how he followed his daughter inside. He only knew that along the way, people came out to greet him. His mind was muddled, and he only knew that his heart was nervous. After turning a few small paths, they came to a courtyard. Fengjiu stopped and didn't follow in. She said to her father beside her, "Father, mother is inside. You can go in." As soon as her voice fell, she retreated and walked with Xianyuan Mose to the courtyard in front. Leng Shuang in the courtyard saw them and retreated silently. Although she didn't recognize who they were, she tactfully didn't ask and quietly left when she saw that her master didn't come in and instead retreated. Feng Xiao stepped in. He walked lightly, as if afraid of scaring her. As he walked, he looked at the elegant figure trimming the flowers and plants in the courtyard. Her exquisite and graceful figure, her silky smooth black hair, her simple and elegant dress, and her gentle and soft aura, all of them were familiar to him, and all of them made his heart skip a beat. It was as if he had returned to the moment when he first met her. Shangguan Wanrong, who had her back to him, didn't know that the person behind her was Feng Xiao. She thought that the person standing behind her was Leng Shuang. So, without turning her head, she said, "Leng Shuang, bring the watering can over and water it." Hearing this, Feng Xiao stopped and looked around. His gaze fell on the watering can. He walked over and took the watering can, then walked forward and handed it to her. Shangguan Wanrong reached out to take it. However, when her gaze fell on the hand holding the watering can, she couldn't help but be startled. Instinctively, she looked back. With this look, her entire person was stunned. Familiar eyebrows, familiar eyes, familiar face, familiar aura. Feng Xiao. Chapter 1638. Wanrong. He reached out and pulled her into his embrace. His voice was choked with emotion as he said, "You've suffered." Shangguan Wanrong shook her head and hugged him tightly with both hands. "It's good that you're here. I never thought I'd be able to see you again, or see our daughter. Our daughter is truly outstanding. If it weren't for her, many things would have been impossible. The reason we're able to reunite today is also because of her. As Feng Xiao spoke, he held her hand and led her to the table in the courtyard. Looking at her husband in front of her, she had an indescribable feeling in her heart. After so many years of suffering, after so many years of enduring, she finally managed to wait for a day of reunion. I never thought that after so many years, with your memories of me sealed, you would still be able to single-handedly raise our daughter. I originally thought that you would definitely forget about me and marry someone else. Who would have thought that Xiaojiu would tell me that you've been alone all these years? I'm glad that I've always been alone. Otherwise, how could I be worthy of your many years of waiting? He held her hand and said, Wanrong, our family will never be separated again. I'll bring you back to our home. Amen, we'll never be separated again. She nestled into his embrace. Her heart that had been floating for so many years finally found a harbor to shore. In front, Fengjiu accompanied Xianyuan Mose as they walked in the front courtyard. As they strolled, she thought of the scene from before and asked with a smile, Did you not recognize my father when you saw him? Hearing this, Xianyuan Mose felt a bit uncomfortable. He looked away and said, I didn't recognize him. And then? I saw that you looked like you wanted to kill someone when you stared at my father. She smiled like a fox, her eyes shining as she stared at him. Were you jealous? Jealous of my father? No. Is that so? She raised her eyebrows and teasingly said, Why do I feel like it's not like that? Your father is here. Why don't we go see my father before we return to the Phoenix dynasty and discuss the marriage? He changed the topic, feeling that he had nowhere to hide under her teasing gaze. Hearing that, Fengjiu stopped joking and said, Then I'll tell them later and see what they plan to do. Tomorrow. Tomorrow, we'll ask them what they think. Xianyuan Mose said, staring at her, I've collected a lot of good things to prepare for you as betrothal gifts. Whether it's the betrothal gifts or the wedding day, I'll do it in a grand manner, letting everyone know that your Fengjiu is married to me. Actually, you don't have to do that. After all, getting married is only a matter between the two of us. It has nothing to do with anyone else. Just do it normally. She knew that he had her in his heart and that he loved her deeply. That was enough. As for the other things, they were just for outsiders to see. To her, it didn't matter whether they existed or not. On the other side, Guan Shilin, who had heard that Feng Xiao had arrived, rushed back from the medicine shop. As soon as he entered the courtyard, he saw Fengjiu and Xianyuan Mose standing under a tree in the front yard. Seeing this, he didn't disturb them. Instead, he walked down another path, planning to ask Leng Hua first. However, not long after he walked down the other path, he met the siblings Leng Shuang and Leng Hua. Leng Hua, I heard that my foster father is here. Is it true? Chapter 1639. Hearing this, he nodded and smiled, It's good that you're here. This time, foster mother and Xiaojiu can rest assured. He thought for a moment, then said, How about this? Let's not eat at home tonight. I'll book a restaurant outside and have a good meal outside. I'll go book it. Leng Hua said, then said to Guan Shilin, You just came back, so rest at home. Later, you can meet with the patriarch. Here, he changed the title from monarch to patriarch. After all, this was more appropriate. That's fine. Guan Shilin agreed and let him go first, then said to Leng Hua, Xiaojiu and the others are in front. Let's go tell them. Thus, he walked towards where Fengjiu and the others were. As the sky gradually darkened, Feng Xiao walked out of the courtyard with Shengwan Wanrong and met up with Fengjiu and the others in the front hall. After meeting and chatting with everyone for a few days, they sat in a carriage and went out to the restaurant. The restaurant Leng Hua booked was one of Yan Dian's businesses. In order to avoid being disturbed, they booked the entire second floor. They didn't eat in a side room, but sat on the second floor facing the window, where they could see the lively night scene on the street. As the dishes were served, they drank and ate while chatting. They asked about the situation at home as well as the Phoenix dynasty's current situation. Feng Xiao answered them one by one, telling them that everything was fine at home and that they didn't need to worry. "Uncle Xiao, I'd like to invite you and Aunt Rong to the palace to meet with my imperial father to discuss the marriage. What do you think?" Xianyuan Mose saw that the atmosphere was good, so he directly asked this question. He felt that now that Fengzhou's parents had been reunited, the next step should be to arrange their marriage. After all, the two of them had known each other for many years. Although they hadn't been engaged for long, the two of them liked each other very much. Since they were prepared to never let go of each other's hands, then getting married early would give them more time to be together. This is a must. You've been to our place and met our elders, but we haven't been able to visit your father. Since we're here, we naturally have to meet your father and discuss the marriage between you and Xiaojiu. At this point, Feng Zhao's voice paused, then he looked at Xianyuan Mose and asked, "Your imperial father doesn't object to your Xiaojiu's marriage, right?" After all, the status of the Xianyuan dynasty was extraordinary and far from what their tiny Phoenix dynasty could compare to. If he looked down on them, it was also pardonable. "Uncle Xiao, you can rest assured. My imperial father has already met Fengzhou and is very satisfied with her. He won't stop this marriage," Xianyuan Mose said, glancing at Fengzhou beside him. Even if his imperial father would stop it, he would still marry Fengzhou. He hoped that they would meet his imperial father, not because of anything else, but because he valued Fengzhou. He hoped that their marriage would be blessed by the elders of both sides, and that she would be given all the etiquette that ordinary people would have when they got married. "That's good." Feng Xiao nodded and said, "If you've already taken care of the matters here, then we can set off to visit your imperial father in 2 days. "Okay, I'll take care of it," Xianyuan Mose said with a smile. Then he saw Fengzhou fill the wine cup in front of him. "You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.